Heard that, right?
No, I couldn't hear it.
Okay. So I wanted to do it, my way with whereby,
There you
but
go.
but I think you're going to see me twice now, or hang on.
I don't see you once. There you go.
Yeah, now you see me once, but my audience will see me twice, I bet. Oh no, I can do this.
Double the fun.
I can do this. That will work.
I don't want to be on. I don't want to be on yours though. I see me now.
I know. See, that's the problem. You're going to see yourself twice.
But what if I do this? No, my head's even larger then. That's worse. Let's just do that. All right, that's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine.
Is there any other way to do it? Hang on, let me think about this. Myron. No, you can't.
Myron.
He's paid minimum wage and he's overpaid.
It's fair. Did you name him after Myron from Fresh and Fit?
No, actually, I named Myron. I mean, he's a real guy, but I named him after my first cousin. His name is Myron.
Nice. Well, welcome back, Doug. This has been the, the last time I streamed.
Oh, hang on.
This is the lowest budget. Lowest budget, most poorly produced.
It wasn't me. It
show
was
I've ever
Myron,
done.
my producer.
This is a poorly produced show. I'm gonna try to. You know what my biggest problem is, Doug? This is my biggest problem. I laugh at my own jokes too much.
Me too. We
Do
both
you?
share that problem. So
Interesting.
I
Only.
I'm thinking like I would love to have a serious conversation about you on various political topics, but I have a feeling that both you and I are so nonchalant and laid back that it's going to be really difficult.
That's fair. I could be in a mood. I could be in a mood to argue, or not argue.
We'll not argue. Let's have a Joe Rogan experience, right? How have you been?
A Joe Rogan
I
experience.
actually felt for you the other day because I noticed on Twitter people are being mean to you.
No, that can't be true.
Yeah.
No. Have you followed my site? Well, look. Let's just establish some context for the audience, both yours and mine. The last time I am a YouTuber, I suppose. A pundit. I'm not really a pundit. I'm an applied sociologist. I'm furthering a new field of meme smithing, I call it. Whatever. Beside the point. I used to stream, Doug. I used to stream every Saturday morning for almost a year straight. The last stream I did
was with me.
You.
Oh,
Paul and Doug take on the world.
I killed this for you.
Yeah, it was after that I realized it's streaming is brain cancer. Now this is no, it wasn't because of you. It was actually quite fun. It was a buildup of many things because when you're on a stream you have to act like a performing monkey. That's the problem. Also, I don't like how the fucking number of people watching is always in the corner. I can't get rid of that. I don't think you can get rid of it on StreamYard, which is insane.
Oh yeah, see, I don't use StreamYard. I use Whereby, and then you don't see it.
I might switch to OBS, but whatever. Point is, I was a performing monkey for a while. I didn't like it. I also didn't like opening the call lines to randos.
Was it the pressure that you didn't like, or just the pressure to perform?
Yeah. Look, I do not do well under my performance suffers a lot under pressure. This is just a general life pattern for me. Really, like in every possible way. One could say I go spiritually limp.
I realize this is hard to believe, but if you were to come to my house and like have sup with me, have a good dinner, I'm the same guy in my own house.
I believe that. I can tell. I can tell authenticity. No. My it wasn't. I didn't like the character I was because I'm a bit of a character, right? And I too am the same way. I mean, I have the same type of sarcasm and all that, but I do look. I do have. This is something I came to the realization of, Doug. I have some level of responsibility, right? This isn't just a fun thing. It used to be. But there's some people who listen to me and who care what I have to say.
Forget about them. Forget about them. It's just me and you tonight.
That's true.
That's how you be authentic.
All right. Well, let me ask you this: if you had to put it probabilistically, like a percentage chance, what percentage chance do you think that Israel had foreknowledge of 9/11?
What?
Just you and me, Doug.
Israel had foreknowledge of 9/11.
That's some people in Israel had foreknowledge of 9/11? What do you think? What's the percentage chance?
1%.
You think 1%?
Yeah.
The greatest intelligence agency in the history of the world. We know our government had foreknowledge for sure. Right? The problem was it was miscommunicated.
What do you mean our government had foreknowledge?
That was what the whole 9/11 commissions revealed. That different governments were tracking those people, but there was, because of the siloed communication, it never got from one agency to the other.
Okay, but wait. Okay, I've got to back up. When you mean foreknowledge, you don't mean that they knew that would happen on that date and to that location. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, Mossad knew that this was going
to happen. That's what you mean by knowledge. Then I up my 1% to like 50.
50. Now, Doug, it's just you and me here. Okay, so listen.
Yeah. So, like,
I'm not going to tolerate this anti-Semitism. Okay.
Didn't even Trump predict that there would be like
Alex Jones did.
Alex Jones, Trump, same thing. I'm kidding.
Alex Jones predicted 9/11.
He did?
Well, I have to go back and watch, but it's pretty insane what he says. And what I would like to do is talk to one of these anti-conspiracy theorists and show them this clip and go, what the fuck? Explain this to me. But anyway, okay, well, look, I agree. It's just you and me. Look, the point is, the last time I streamed, it was Paul and Doug Take on the World, and I'm coming out of retirement. And it's a nice, quiet stream tonight because I didn't advertise it that much, you know. It's 8 o'clock on a Wednesday. We're just chilling.
What's your take on Elon Musk?
I'm starting to like him less and less. It is. We do live in a weird situation where he's standing right next to the president.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like if George Soros were right next to fucking who would be the Democrat that would usher in George Soros? Well, they all would. But let's say Kamala Harris was president and George Soros was standing next to her. It'd be a little odd. Now, I happen to align more with Elon Musk than George Soros, but I'm a principled person. So I recognize that this could just as easily become a norm that does not work in my favor. What do you think?
I think people's fear of him is, as usual, overblown. But I am the personality type that I really don't worry and I don't fret.
Do you think that works? Do you think that works to your detriment to some degree in your ability to detect real threats?
Not so far in my life.
Well,
like if there's a lion and I see a tail and a big mouth behind a bush, yeah, then I start to worry.
That's good.
But I don't view, like, there's so many people that I talk to on Discord or on X or on YouTube, or I read comments, and they just, I don't know if it's just the fact that he's a billionaire. Like, I feel like asking them, okay, pretend it's not Donald Trump in the Oval Office and it's Harris,
mm-hmm.
and pretend Elon Musk used his wealth to help Harris win, but everything else is the same.
That's not a real This goes back to your fundamental problem, which is your hypotheticals are garbage. They really are. Because the whole problem with Elon Musk is his beliefs, according to the people who hate him.
Well, Elon Musk never used to be, like, he used to be a Democrat, right?
Well, but Democrat and Republican don't mean much anymore. That's not the divide. It's populist versus institutionalist.
Okay, let's put it this way. Elon Musk is basically a different person, but doing, like, he believes the same things Harris does, a lot of the same things. But
okay, let's say George Soros. We can actually pick a person there.
Okay, so George Soros was standing next to Harris, and
I'd be concerned.
And what George Soros was doing was finding waste, corruption, misuse of funds.
Mm.
Like, would Democrats, like, look, what if George Soros said, I think we should get rid of U.S. aid?
Well, you know what the argument is? So I wrote a Substack piece about USAID. It's phenomenal. Well-researched, a lot of links to a lot of factual sources. And my point was there's a lot of garbage there, obviously. And anyone who's reasonably informed about this knows that regardless of how much you value the good aspects of USAID, which there are some, there's no doubt a significant degree of waste, abuse, and fraud. Apparently, that's not the issue. The issue is that it's illegal for the executive branch to deny funding to agencies that Congress has appropriated funds to. It's illegal, and I believe
is it illegal to freeze funding
indefinitely? Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not what happened, right?
Yeah, I was just watching. Do you know who Pisco is? Pisco Liddy, by any chance?
That name sounds very familiar.
He's replacing Destiny after Destiny's recent.
Oh, is Destiny going to jail?
Not yet.
You don't have a chance to talk to him, like a guaranteed
You,
chance. Guaranteed. That's not a chance then, right?
in what context?
Reed from Cordial Curiosity, Peter
Yeah, of course.
Boghossian? Yeah. They have
Yeah,
an event coming up in Florida on February 23rd. So I got to make up my mind soon.
I was asked to attend that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I said no.
Maybe you and I both should go. Are you going?
I said no.
Because?
Because I don't find it productive to antagonize Destiny's audience with my antics. And if I was to appear in a video with him, it would do just that. So,
Do you think I should go?
you should. You and Destiny, especially in person, because not even his sociopathy is very powerful when it's online, because you ignore all the a lot of the body language and natural inhibiting factors on that type of stuff that you have in person. So if you're in person with him, I'd pay money to see that.
But
You can tell Reed that.
here's my excuses for not going. One, work. Two,
Work.
yeah, I'm self-employed, and
You're
there's
still
no
working? I thought you were retired.
Well,
You do a little bit of
I've been retired since age 25, in the sense that I do what I want when I want. Like, I've been self-employed for most of my life.
Sure.
So, but I love working, so I'm never going to retire
That's
in
fair.
that sense.
When I'm doing work that's actually like building things, it's actually, I don't mind it, even if it is kind of niche, like AI governance standard operating procedures. It's like, well, if we're actually helping them create something new, it's pretty cool.
But here's my other excuse.
Yeah.
The topic is executive orders, Trump's executive orders, and there's like 1,000 of them by now, and Andrew Wilson's going to be there. And if this is like a debate type format, or they call it SE, street epistemology, spectrum street epistemology, so it won't be like angry debate or anything like that. It will be more on understanding each other. But basically, Andrew and I think, are very much aligned politically.
Of course. But
And
religiously.
Except for the theocracy thing. But the actual specific point-by-point stuff. So anything I would say. But the thing is, we have different styles. So...
Yeah, he's very aggressive. He would be what you call a berserker.
Well, he's only aggressive when people are aggressive to him.
You're a rogue. That's true. Well, and that's true with Destiny. See, this is something I've learned in my 28 years, Doug, is that there's certain personality types that just respect strength. Right? Like it's not very intuitive that you would think, hey, I can call someone a fucking imbecile to their face, and it actually causes them to respect you. And it's not intuitive, because for most people that's not true. But there are people who, and I've seen, not even online, but just there are people who they're kind of, they're very aggressive, they're very disagreeable, and if you give it to them back, they respect that, because then they know, like, okay, this is a person I can be a truth teller with. And Andrew's that way, and I think Destiny is that way as well. But you don't have any hesitancy about showing up on a stream with Destiny, even though he's going.
No, I did. I shared that on a couple live streams.
Allegations.
But pardon me, like, I don't. Everybody's a hypocrite once in a while. I'm not talking about Destiny. I'm talking about myself. And I've always said that if Hitler were alive today, I would love to interview him. So if I'm willing to interview Hitler,
sure.
Destiny hasn't killed any Jews that I know of.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, the other thing too, I've talked to him 3 times. I don't know if you caught any of those conversations.
Yeah, I thought you did really well with them.
Thank you. I talked to him 3 times, and it's funny. I was the last person to talk to him on his stream before this whole thing went down.
Sort of like me and you. Is there something going down between us?
No. But I gave him the kiss of death. But the very last thing we talked about killed my curiosity. Because the whole reason I want to talk to him was, I just like finding the smartest people I can find, and especially those who disagree, and find out why we disagree. It's just interesting, right? The smartest person I can find, and then my game is, how can I, using all of my faculties, not just logic, but also like, being amicable and, giving concessions and all that stuff, how can I truly understand how they think? And the very end of the conversation, he said something to the effect of like, because I told him, Destiny, you're left wing. So obviously compared to you, I appear right wing. But when I argue with Andrew Wilson, I appear left wing. He's like, show me one time that you've ever argued with a conservative about Ken Starr's investigation into Bill Clinton or the Hunter Biden or the Hunter Biden hoax about Burisma and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, Destiny literally only cares about like political headline news. He's not interested in the fundamental disagreements around like religion. And I think the stuff that actually you probably find more interesting.
Yeah.
Not even it's, well, you say politics or apologetics?
Politics.
Yeah, he cares about that, and more at the news level instead of like
Right.
the philosophical. And so I was like, oh, okay. It's really just now it comes down to we're just fundamentally interested in different things, and everything I'm going to say is he's just going to report with, well, I don't think that's as important as like.
Did you explain to him that the majority of Americans just don't care about January 6th?
Of course, yeah. I think he's acknowledged that now. And I think he used to have the opinion that, well, it's because of people like you, Paul. Maybe if political pundits or whatever I am took more responsibility and told people why it's important, then they would care. And I go, I don't think so.
Do you think he understands that people like you and I can understand at least, 50, 70, 80% of what happened that day and still value other things more? You know what I'm saying?
Do I think he understands it? It's an interesting question. What is he exactly?
Like if I was to go to Florida and talk to him, and I don't think the topic of January 6th will come up, but if it were, like, does he understand that people, let's say, value immigration, critical theory, those topics more so than what Trump did the days prior to January 6th and January 6th itself? Does he understand that people can say, yeah, that was bad, but I don't think it's going to repeat itself, and this is more important to me. That's why I'm voting for Trump. Does he get that?
I don't know. It's hard to say. See, this is part of. I'm very psychologically interested in Destiny because to your exact point, like, that seems so obvious and intuitive.
Yeah.
And then the question goes, okay, well, he's clearly smart enough to understand that. So is it just a matter of like pure autism? I don't think so. It is it's like, well, have you ever met anyone who they're two people who are in a relationship who say they're going to get divorced, like even if before they're married?
Yep.
And like they do things that it's so obvious that you're like, you guys don't see what everyone else sees and how like much you're fighting and how like you're taking these. Like I know someone who was engaged and was going to move to a different city, and this is someone who I knew them for 6 months. I would go to dinner with them. They'd be taking pot shots at each other. Literally, what the girl said, "I'm going to flirt with all your friends," like unironically. I was like, "What is going on? How is this not? How can someone?" And this is smart person, professional. How can someone be in such denial about that? And I don't know. It's. And I feel like I don't, because I think Destiny is in. I don't say denial, but like. Is he motivated by truth? I don't know. I think here's what I think. I think I think his parents represent everything he hates about
evil,
MAGA conservatism.
Yeah. I think it's daddy issues.
Yeah. Well, I think that's reductive because I would say that who you are as an adult is fundamentally shaped by your childhood.
Yeah.
That applies to everyone.
But bad daddy issues. What I'm saying. I agree with you. I seem to remember Destiny talking about his parents and viewing them very negatively, and that they're mega types and very conservative and traditional and whatever.
Yeah.
And he's basically a gay man or something.
Yeah.
Polyamorous. I don't know.
Well, everyone's bisexual, Doug, except for me. I'm straight as fuck. Do you know why everyone's bisexual?
Do I know why?
Well, I'll tell you why. I'm going to pose you this question, okay? And you tell me.
Oh.
You need to tell me which of the following is gayer, okay?
I know where this is going.
You have to have sex with one of these two people.
I should have wrote it down.
A person that looks identical to Megan Fox.
But has a penis.
Or someone who looks identical to Hulk Hogan or Chuck Norris, but has a vagina. If you have to pick one, let's say for a heterosexual man, If you have to pick one, which of those is gayer?
Which is gayer?
Which is gayer? The answer is obvious. Andrew
Yeah.
Tate pointed this out a while ago.
Yeah. I would bite my tongue and bear it. But yeah, I'd go with the Megan Fox face.
There you go. Everyone's bisexual. All right, hold on.
Well, there's a scale, you know. I forget what they call it. It's
Whoa.
1 to 7.
Hold on here. Hold on. I'm getting bombarded by messages. One sec. Oh,
What?
Doug, I'll have you know, we're going to argue about Trump, right? We're going to have a discussion about Trump, right?
Well, I thought Israel. Well, which is the same thing.
We can do that the next time. Yeah, that's fair. Well, yeah, Trump and Israel are one and the same. I may have called for backup.
Oh, who do you got for backup?
The backup may have arrived.
Oh, don't tell me it's JJ.
No, but I asked him, and he said absolutely not.
Because the way he remembered me.
Well, yeah, because you do your stupid you can do your presuppositional bullshit with other presuppositionalists. To the average person, it just comes off as the most annoying shit in the world.
I disagree, but anyhow, who's your backup?
Well, my backup was going to be Josiah. Remember how you destroyed him last time?
Yeah, I like Josiah way better than JJ.
Someone else. So hold on, we're going to bring in someone here.
Is it Hutch? I like Hutch.
No, it's someone else. You know, Josiah, Hutch, Pisco, and Econoboi have a podcast together.
Yeah, I went on once.
Did you really?
Yeah.
They're like the, what do you call it? Pod Save America. They're the new Pod Save America. So this is a big opportunity for you, Doug.
Yeah, when I went on, the last thing I said to them is barbed wire saves lives, and they freaked out.
No, that's when you no. That's when. Oh, did you? Because you talked about that when I moderated the debate between you guys. You said that barbed wire.
Yeah, and then I repeated it on their show, and Josiah had the same expression.
All right, Doug. I'm going to bring on my backup.
Oh, I got to change my settings now.
Okay, I'm going to bring on.
But go ahead.
Here.
Do what you
3,
do.
2. Hello, sir.
Oh, yeah, I recognize him. Okay.
Hey, guys.
I got to change.
Yeah, I've been subbed in.
Hello. Yes, I reached out to Josiah from Pondering Politics, and
one of the second string Live and Learn hosts.
Second string. Yeah.
But I'll take it.
Excellent.
I was told there was a conversation happening.
Yeah. So
we're having a Joe Rogan experience.
Yeah, we're having a bit. It's a Joe Rogan style conversation, right? Just cool, chill, But we'll do some friendly disagreement. First off, what do I call you? I call you Econoboi. Do you have a first name or?
Mr. Boy works, or Econoboi, either one.
Okay, I'll go with Econoboi. Econoboi, just for my just benefit, are you familiar with my channel at all? Just as Josiah briefed you.
Yeah, I've seen you in a couple conversations, but not, super familiar.
That's fair. All right. Well, I haven't scared you away.
No, ask about me. Ask about
me.
Now,
what do you know about PineCreek Doug here for you and the audience's benefit?
He showed up on Live and Learn once, but I don't think we've spoken before or after that. I think it was just the one appearance on Live and Learn.
Yeah.
All right. Well, he's an atheist conservative, which I find exceedingly interesting at all times. But more importantly, he's a big Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Now, Econoboi, despite what many a Destiny fan will write in my comment section, I'm not actually fundamentally a Trump supporter. I'm happier that Trump won than Kamala, but I voted for Jill Stein in Texas because I'm a realist.
Okay.
Now, let's just go right into the meat of this because we're talking about Doge and US aid. Because really what this is, it's a war between the deep state and
you want to go straight to that? You don't want to warm up? You don't want to warm up a little bit?
No, we're going in raw.
With Mr.
We're going
Boy?
in raw, Doug. We're going in raw.
Ask about his family and his life and what he does for a living.
No, we don't need to.
I know nothing about him.
We'll keep it hostile. A good Joe Rogan experience that will come out naturally. Oh, some.
Did we lose him?
No, you guys didn't lose me. I'm just muting my mic and camera real quick.
Okay.
But I can still hear you guys.
Okay. All right. Well, Doug, I'll look at you while I say this. Econoboi, we're going to talk about Doge and the war on the permanent state. Because here's the deal. A lot of people are saying that what Trump and Elon Musk are doing is illegal. And even so far as could be described as a constitutional crisis. Now, Doug, as an avid Trump supporter, how do you feel about that?
I think it's rhetoric.
It's rhetoric.
Yeah, I think so far there's nothing illegal that's been happening.
Okay.
It's not illegal to freeze funds.
Well, Econoboi, why don't you give your perspective? Like, here we are. We're how many days in the Trump administration? How do you feel about how things are going right now?
I think they're going pretty badly. But, you know, I guess I would say that as a filthy leftist. But no, I think they're going pretty badly. I mean, I think, for instance, the House, they just released their budget resolution, which is kind of like a wish list for what they want to do. You know, Biden did the same thing. You know, what was on his wish list? It was trillions of dollars of social spending, reductions in inequality and poverty. You know, what do the Republicans wish for? You know, they're wishing for trillions of dollars of cuts in welfare programs that assist, you know, the neediest people in our society. And of course, tax cuts, which are extremely disproportionately given out to the wealthiest of society, right? I mean, that's what, you know, perfect emblematic circumstance of what both parties are, what they wish for. I just happen to align more with what the Democrats' wishes are than the Republicans.
All right. Well, it sounds pretty calm. It's not a constitutional crisis, right? Everyone who's saying it's a constitutional crisis is probably exaggerating, right?
Well, it depends on what you mean, right? So, like, obviously, I think we have a pretty long-standing history of you know, respecting the courts, right? And JD Vance and, you know, I think Elon Musk comes out and says, well, actually, you know, I don't know that the court has the authority to sort of tell the president or these other agencies what to do. And that's obviously, well, in some sense, that's a reimagination, you could say, of the Constitution. I mean, what really happens if the court gets completely ignored? It's happened a couple times in our history, and, you know, obviously it could be quite disastrous, right? And then when it comes to, like, you know, Trump basically freezing all the spending and all the employment and all this stuff for various federal agencies, seems to have particularly targeted the CFPB and the Education Department. Well, emblematically, it's, you know, I would call that a bit of a crisis in the sense that, well, the president's basically saying he can just decide that a federal department is no longer going to be getting funded or employed, you know, despite an act of Congress.
All right, hold on. Let me say two things. First off, this is you are a very intelligent person, Econoboi. I can tell, but we go back and forth here. So there's
I was done. Yeah,
there's a lot of interrupting. So you're saying ignoring the courts could be considered a constitutional crisis, correct? So, someone saying basically the court doesn't have any authority, right? They have no army, so fuck you, right? That's borderline fascistic, right?
Sure.
All right, please tell me your thoughts on this clip.
Yeah, sure.
That.
And then I would turn to the Supreme Court and be like, guys, I dare you to try to order me into default. And if you do, then I'll do what President Lincoln did during the Civil War. Non-acquiescence. The Supreme Court has no army. They've got shit. All they have is good faith. And if you're not going to exercise good faith, well, then I'm not going to exercise good faith. And just remind everybody that Joe Biden, sometimes I feel like he forgets it, is the most powerful man on earth.
But you know what? That's for my video, the PF Young Orbiter tier list for anyone interested. Doug is C tier, Pondering Politics is D tier. What do you think of that, Econoboi? Oh, shit, I removed him. What do you think about that?
There we go.
Yeah, I mean, I said on Live and Learn just now that, you know, I have a legal realist view that, you know, I actually don't think that the court has sort of this true material power, and it's all a matter of the enforcement mechanisms themselves, right? But when we're talking about sort of the democratic legitimacy of actions, or like what I think is necessarily good or bad or right or wrong, well, yeah, I mean, I think that this current administration defying the court insofar as, and to be fair, this is theoretical, they necessarily haven't done what I'm describing exactly. There was that TRO, which I haven't read much into, but if the Supreme Court were to say something like, oh, well, you can't just functionally get rid or abolish the Department of Education, you have to like allow these people to do their work and appropriate the funds appropriately, you know, determined by Congress and court. And Donald Trump says, I'm just not going to do that.
Habeas corpus. They have no army.
No, I understand.
Let me take the Josiah legal theory here.
Well, P.F. Jung, I mean, again, the legal theory, I think, is, or P.F. Jung, I mean, the legal theory here, I don't know is necessarily unsound in a practical sense, right? Again, the court doesn't have an army, right? But it's a matter of, is that good or bad or right or wrong for the court to do, or for the Trump administration to do?
And in my
getting
opinion,
rid of the Education Department without an act of Congress, I would say very bad.
That's fair. I'm a centrist, so I don't have an opinion. But Doug, in your opinion, What do you think? You think it's okay to ignore? Are you taking the Josiah legal approach on this one?
I don't think you should ignore the courts, no. But I do think that there is a desire from maybe some judges to prevent Trump from doing some of the things he desires to do. I think that's very reasonable to say. But I want to back up a little bit because I want to find common ground. And I think Mr. Boy and us, we all agree that we want to cut waste out of government, yes?
Oh, yeah. Nobody loves cutting waste more than I do.
Okay. And I think we can agree to disagree on priorities, but it seems like if Elon Musk is telling the truth, and I know a lot of people on the left don't trust Elon Musk, but if even half the things he's saying is true, seems like there's a ton of waste and ton of bad priorities going on, right?
No. I mean, if half the things he's saying are true, I don't think even close to half the things he's saying is true, though, to be fair.
Like $5 million to NGOs for bat virus research, $10 million for meals to Al Qaeda, 1.5 million to Serbia DEI initiatives. You're okay with that?
Let's just pick one. Hold on. Let's just pick one. Let's do the 1.5 million for Serbian DEI initiatives because that's indisputable, verifiably true from USA.
All right, let's do it.
Would you consider that waste?
No,
Mr. Boy.
No.
Why not?
Because I don't think DEI initiatives are bad, and I don't think spreading messages of diversity, equality, and inclusion across the country or across the world, I should say, is necessarily a bad thing.
Can I take this one? I was
going to say, Doug, we didn't pre-screen this guest. We didn't know how. We didn't realize we're bringing radicals on.
Okay,
here.
So
sure,
I understand that that's your personal belief on it, that DEI should be spread across the world.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going even further than that, and you're saying that taxpayers should fund that.
Yep.
Okay. Now, given our current election results, and given, let's say, even polls on DEI, do you still think taxpayers should fund this?
What are you asking me? Do I think that if people disagree with something, it should be funded? I mean, obviously,
if 51% of the American people say no, we should not fund DEI around the world, would you disagree with them?
I mean, yeah, it's a democracy. I'm free to disagree with the majority in some instances.
Okay, but see, this is the problem. When you have money, taxpayer money being used to fund these things, you can have your personal opinion on it, but I think as someone who's a reasonable political person, you would say, I understand that most of the country does not want these things, so I think we should maybe listen to the majority and not fund these things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what the point is. I mean, I looked up, I was able to find the $1.5 million going to Serbia. It looks like they're basically trying to promote LGBTQ persons in the workplace. I mean, again, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that a lot of countries have regressive views about gay people, and spreading a liberal message about accepting gay people, especially in the workplace, I don't think that that's a terrible use of money. If people disagree with that, well, they're free to disagree with it. Obviously, people voted for Trump. He's trying to get rid of this funding. So
how does that benefit Americans?
Well, I mean, I don't think that everything America does should necessarily directly. I'm not a pure egoist, right? I don't think that everything that America does should.
Do you believe it benefits Americans?
I mean, in some very roundabout sense, maybe, but maybe not. It doesn't really matter. That's irrelevant to whether it's good or bad.
Okay, I'm hearing it's irrelevant, but maybe not.
PineCreek, do you disagree with what do you think it's irrelevant? Do you think it's a good thing to do something even if it doesn't directly benefit yourself? Do you think that can still be a good thing to do?
Sure, but the question is, should taxpayers be funding DEI to Serbia? And I say no. I don't think
I say yes.
I don't think.
Disagree.
Yeah, okay, we can agree to disagree. But I think the majority of Americans would agree with me on this issue. And so if, let's say, a guy like Elon Musk says to Congress, I think we should scrap this, you would support the legal method of Congress saying, no, we're not going to do this anymore, right?
Yeah, I mean, if Congress passes a bill that changes an allocation of funding, I mean, that's our process, you know. What would I say I mean, descriptively, they're allowed to do that. I would just say that that's bad to do.
Yeah, it's very interesting that, like, do you see, this might be a tangent, and Paul, tell me if this is a tangent, but
I'll tell you if it's a tangent.
Do you see any negatives with DEI?
It depends
This
on
is
what you
not a
mean.
tangent. This is the string. Doug.
This is the fundamental core.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, like we're talking about a specific line item in the budget, which
Yes.
from what I just saw was to promote LGBTQ people in the workplace, right? And is that bad? I mean, I don't think so.
No,
I
but
mean, I
it's
think
diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives.
well, we're broadening the conversation now. So if we're going to get off of the specific 1.5 million, then
Let's go
I don't-
deeper. Let's go deeper.
Yeah. So, is there any negatives to DEI in your opinion?
I define what you mean, but what's a negative of DEI? And
That's
I'll
what I'm
tell
asking
because
you.
People have these.
Can
people
you
have these nebulous
imagine?
definitions?
Can you imagine any downside to DEI?
I can imagine people saying something is DEI and me saying that is bad. I can say that. Yeah.
But you can't imagine a specific. This is amazing to me. You can't imagine a specific consequence that's negative to implementing DEI.
Okay, PineCreek. This shouldn't be amazing because you haven't. People have different definitions for what DEI is.
Okay,
So
what do
until
you
tell me what?
How do you define DEI?
Okay, I think DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, it's various programs that would set to promote those concepts. Now, what are those concepts, right? Diversity could mean diversity of, various demographic states. Equity could obviously mean, the ability to proactively, equally, achieve what you desire in various senses. Then an inclusion could just be an inclusion of various groups of people that might be otherwise underserved by current society's policies, right? Now, that all seems pretty reasonable to me. Now, some implementations or applied versions of that could be bad, but you just have to give.
Can you be more specific?
You gave the example of You gave the example of the Serbian funding for LGBTQ people in the workplace. I say, well, that seems fine to me. So
No.
Doug, can I take a different angle?
Well, I'm almost there. I
Go
think, Mr. Boy, I really think you're kind of skirting this. I think there's some obvious answers to my question. Even if you disagree with them, I think you can utter them. And take diversity, the diversity part. You mentioned the implementation of it. What are some negative consequences of implementing DEI or having diversity?
You could do things that are wrong under the guise of diversity, right?
Like?
I don't know. For instance, if the government said, hey, we're going to mandate that every single corporate board is at least 100 people and that every single corporate board has to be appointed by the government and that every single one of these seats must be perfectly demographically balanced to the broad American population for a wide array of issues, even though in theory that's a diverse thing to do. You could say it's because of diversity and inclusion. Yeah, that seems like it would be pretty bad on other grounds, right? It doesn't seem like the best way to functionally promote diversity, if you ask me.
If Josiah was here and you had a side bet, you're like typing backstage to each other, and you were guessing what I would answer. What's my answer to my own question? What do you predict I'd say?
I don't know you that well. I'm not sure.
Too many broads in the workplace.
I don't know you that well. Yeah, you could say anything. I'm not sure.
Here's the potential problem with encouraging diversity in the workplace. You might have diversity in skin shade and not based on what you actually believe and different cultures and thoughts and ways of living and ways of working. What value is having a diversity in sexual proclivities if it doesn't actually apply to anything in the workplace? If diversity means a diverse array of opinions and lines of thought, great. But if it means we want darker skin shades, then what are we doing? Isn't that racism?
Well, I mean, obviously, if your definition of diversity, right, and I'm the royal you, if your definition of diversity is just when people are different colors, well, there's many other realms that probably you should have diverse groups of people in, like you said, thought processes,
Right.
Lived experiences. I think that the issue with what you're saying, though, fundamentally, is that these things are oftentimes heavily correlated. There's a reason why there are studies that show that diverse workplaces tend to have some sort of unique benefits, right? You tend to be a little bit more innovative. There tends to be a little bit better sort of workplace culture in a lot of ways, because lived experiences and those like diversities of thought that you say are important
Yeah.
are heavily correlated with, various demographic truths. But I'd ask you the question, like, what's an example of, I don't know, like what's you gave the Serbian example. I don't agree that that's a bad. What's an example of a DEI program that the government does that, I don't know, is really bad in your opinion? Like the worst thing you can think of.
Well, who did JFK just replace, or was he confirmed? I didn't even check. RFK.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about I can't remember his name, but he was the guy from California, the attorney general.
Yeah, the trans guy.
No, the HHS secretary was.
Who's the trans guy? Or trans woman?
That's Rachel Levine. That's Admiral
Rachel Levine,
or
yeah.
Secretary something, Admiral something.
Okay,
Yeah.
I will posit to you that I highly doubt that person would have got the job if they were not trans.
Okay, I mean that's your speculation, I guess. I mean, was it announced? Like,
so
this
here's
is because
here's the
guy,
danger.
or-
Here's the danger of another downside to DEI is that there's a bias that, not always, but there's a potential to lower, like to bend the standards a little bit down to get either the trans person in, or the black person in, or the Hispanic person in. That's a downside when it's not based strictly on merit.
Do you think that RFK's nomination was based strictly on merit?
No, I think not strictly. No,
I mean, absolutely not, right? So, I mean, it just makes no sense to say that RFK.
I think Trump liked him.
No one.
All those
appointment
candidates
purely on merit.
Yeah, all those candidates were handpicked by Trump. Like,
let me. Can you tag me in here?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, all right.
Tag in.
And Econoboi, by the way, for the first half of this discussion, me and Doug are going to be teaming up. I'm a radical centrist. I don't know if Josiah has informed you of this. So what that means is for the first part of this, especially on the DEI stuff, me and Doug are going to go in on you. But for the other half of this, which I'm not going to, we won't get to yet. It's going to be you and me versus Doug, and it's going to be a lot more fun and consequential. So
Okay.
let me just sub in here. Okay, Mr. Boy.
Yes.
If it was the case that there was absolutely zero evidence that DEI programs made a positive impact, would you then consider the 1.5 million on Serbian DEI programs a waste of money? Or is it simply the attempt to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion is good enough?
Well, I mean, I guess you're asking, like, is diversity an irreducible value of mine, right? So is it
No. I'm asking if it was the case that there was zero evidence whatsoever that DEI programs reduced racial attitude or bigoted attitudes, and in some cases made them worse. If that were the state of the literature, would you then agree that this is probably a waste of money?
Well, again, DEI, it would depend on the study that you're referencing, but generally speaking, to answer your question, if there was like an overwhelming amount of evidence that just like broadly DEI initiatives, just like anything that could be considered DEI, has these sort of like self-eating effects where
Yes,
it
reduces
it's actually
positive
worse.
attitude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually worse for I don't know, integration of people and outcomes and stuff like that. Then I would say, well, yeah, it sounds like we should probably do less of that and more of something else, right? I mean, that doesn't seem that controversial.
Excellent. All right. Well, there we go. We're all on the same page. We should abolish DEI in Serbian workplaces unless there is evidence. How about this? Let me ask you a question. What if
That's different. You just made it.
Well,
different.
I know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What if the what is your standard of evidence? So let's say it's inconclusive. We don't know. But we certainly don't have evidence that it produces positive effects. We just can't prove that it produces negative effects. Would you be okay spending that money?
Well, I mean, I would say probably yes, just because of my basic intuitions, but I would say, well, we probably just need to invest in better research, right? We need to research this and really try to come to an understanding.
Fair enough. So you're saying your vibes are telling you that even though there is no peer-reviewed data that suggests that DEI programs, when implemented in workplaces, produce positive outcomes, it's a good attempt and it might be worth it.
Well, in your hypothetical, but my understanding of the literature is that there is a pretty good amount of literature that having, things like diverse workplaces tend to result in better outcomes. Now, even in that sense, like outcomes by what metric, right? I mean, what metric, is it profitability? Right. Like, is that the ultimate thing we should be aiming towards? I mean, that's a good question, an open question as well. But
That's fair. Look, it's a wonderful thing to be part of a large bureaucratic organization like a corporation. Have you ever attended a DEI? Have you worked for a company where you had to do a DEI training?
yes,
And what was that like?
it was fine. I didn't find it
Like
particularly
what did they?
terrible.
What was the exercise? What did they talk about? What did they do?
Well, I can recall a time when I was in a college class and we had to do a lot of DEI stuff because it was like a women's studies class, and I found all those exercises to be fine. For example, one exercise was we all stood outside in a line, like a big line, like shoulder to shoulder, and the professor would ask various questions like, are you a person of color, right? And if any of the answers were yes, you would take a step forward, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes if the answer was no, you would take a step back, right? And the idea was to point out that, this is a very intersectional issue. And so by the end, you have this radical distribution of people where some people who you might consider just by looking at them very advantaged were actually very disadvantaged, and, vice versa, right? And so that seems like a worthwhile exercise. Seems like a nuanced take on diversity and inclusion.
I wish my son was there. You know why?
I'd love to know.
I married a woman of Trinidadian descent who was a first-generation Canadian, very dark skin. My son and daughter are both mocha. They're like beautiful skin tone, right in the middle. Do you think, I'm a upper middle class professional guy, do you think my son should have taken a step back?
Well, PineCreek, that's the beauty of this exercise, right? Is that she asked a broad swath of questions to ascertain the advantages and disadvantages of people. And just because you're dark skinned doesn't necessarily mean you've lived a terrible life.
So this lady who was running the DEI was judging basically all people based on their skin shade, right?
No, PineCreek, it doesn't seem like
It
you're.
sounds a little racist to me.
It seems like you're purposely misunderstanding the exercise.
Let me.
No, I understand the exercise. It feels sorry for her.
It doesn't seem like you do.
Hold on. Let me try this. All right. Other angle here. Okay, you're very smart, Mr. Boy. We got to give you credit.
I try my best.
Now you just wait till you and I take on Doug here, because it'll be even more fun. Let me ask you this. So you're saying, okay, we have DEI. Would you agree that the current state of the literature is certainly, at minimum, inconclusive? It would certainly be wrong to say the broad literature, the peer-reviewed studies say that by and large these DEI programs produce better outcomes. At minimum, it's inconclusive.
I don't think you could say by and large, just because of all the idiosyncrasies with all the different, because again, what we're calling DEI and what we're calling DEI programs encompasses like a billion different things.
Correct. I'm saying that the studies that do exist, whatever they I mean, I don't know how I haven't personally read the studies. I'm sure you haven't either. Yeah. But I do happen to know that, for example, DEI programs are getting cut across the board, which practically, from a business person's perspective, you don't need a peer-reviewed study to tell you that a bad idea is not going to work. You can just look at where the market is going, right? And that's why business people don't need peer-reviewed studies to make decisions, and yet end up quite profitable, because you're not going to have a peer-reviewed study for everything. But there are peer-reviewed studies for this. And it's absolutely the case that, let's say the evidence does not say that it certainly is bad, but we know that the evidence does not say, oh, for sure, this is by and large good. We know that. Because like you said, there's many different programs, they're conflicting, there's a lot of confounding variables, right? So like you said earlier, you have an intuition that, well, we should at least take a stab at it, right? Because it's possibly a good thing.
Yeah, I think just because, even if
I'm setting you up for a trap here, so
yeah, I don't necessarily agree with your survey of the literature here. However, ignoring that, for example, if there's inconclusive evidence on a thing, I don't think that necessarily implies that you should stop doing it or completely abolish all the experiments for it.
Sure. So let me ask you.
All right.
When the horrible, horrible China virus made its way through our country, and Donald J. Trump told everyone to take ivermectin, even though there was no evidence that it cured it, there was also no evidence that it didn't cure it. So in that case, perfectly reasonable to say, well, might as well try. Right?
Do you think that, I have to ask you this because it seems so absurd on its face.
Please.
Do you think that do you think there's as good a reason to believe that ivermectin cures COVID, even at the time, let's say, especially at the
treats
time,
COVID? Nobody made the claim of curing.
Sure. Let's just say it treats COVID effectively relative to getting vaccinated, or let's say. Do you think there's as good a reason to believe that as there is to believe, I don't know, DEI programs can have some substantially positive outcomes?
There's exactly as much evidence in either direction.
I would say DEI does more harm than good.
Well, PineCreek, just give me a second.
Okay.
Jung,
It's young.
how could you possibly say that? It says
Because
it's not Jung, it's Young. Okay,
it's
Young.
PF Young, like Carl Young, yeah.
Are you? How could you possibly say that? There
Because that's a fact.
There's not a broad swath of studies that shows that there's a relatively significant positive impact on taking ivermectin to help with your COVID symptoms. But there is a swath of evidence
Factually wrong. No,
you don't think there's any studies that show that DEI programs can be successful? Is that the
you don't think there's
actual
any
question you're
studies that say ivermectin corresponds with positive treatment?
You don't think there's any studies that show that DEI programs are effective? Is that what you're saying?
Well, of course there are. I can make a study that
Okay.
There's studies that say. Hold on.
Do you
think there are there any
quantity?
studies? Are there any studies by certified doctors that said that ivermectin is a good treatment for COVID?
I believe there was the one study from the French doctor, which was later retracted. But I mean, other than that, what's the swath? I can point to. You can Google it right now. There's probably half a dozen studies on Google Scholar right off the top of the effects of diversity and equity and inclusion programs. A lot of those are going to be positive results. Obviously, if we're talking about a systemic review or a meta-analysis, there's at least the data there to make an informed opinion one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a broad swath of evidence pointing to ivermectin being an effective treatment for COVID.
Have you looked at how many of these ivermectin studies and how many of these DEI studies have you yourself looked at?
I've probably personally reviewed 3 or 4 different studies in my time about DEI. When it comes to ivermectin, I already said I know about the one ivermectin, study from I think it was a French doctor, which was later, retracted. Yeah.
Is that the only study that's out there?
I don't know. You'd have to tell
me.
me.
So, Mr. Boy, let me ask you. I'll ask you this. Here's perfect.
Asking you the question, Young.
Well, let me ask you this: if in the next 5 minutes, while I tag Doug in, I can find several studies that say ivermectin is associated with positive treatments or for positive outcomes for treating COVID that are not retracted, that are still out there. Would you
accept them?
Would you accept them?
I don't. You have to give me an example, right? You have to give me like, oh, this good peer-reviewed meta-analysis shows that ivermectin is very good at treating COVID, but I don't.
All right, how about this? Because my claim, this is my claim. To be fair, so my point, my belief is actually, you're right. We don't have any studies, as far as I know. Well, even if we did have studies, the systemic review of the literature doesn't say that ivermectin can treat COVID. Let's say that's true, and it probably is. Therefore, we shouldn't spend money on it, right? That's fair to say. Okay, can you pull me one study that says that DEI has positive effects?
I mean, do you want me to Google? I can give you a study. I can Google it offhanded if you want.
Yeah,
I mean,
please.
It's been a while since I've.
Please do. I'm going to remove you. I'll bring you back in 3 minutes.
Oh no, don't do that because then that screws up my thing. Just leave him in here and mute him.
All right. You want to? You can turn your camera off.
You guys talk real quick. No big deal.
I'm going to mute you.
I looked into this a while back. And
how's this going?
There's like
we're losing here. We're getting screwed.
You asked some hypothetical type questions. I would ask if there was a study.
Yeah,
See what you're doing?
Well, this is what we got to do. Ultimately, I've watched enough Destiny to know that ultimately every debate comes down to pulling up a study and reviewing it on camera. It's really the only way to get to the bottom of anything. Right?
Yeah.
Now, what do you know about ivermectin? Aren't you a pro ivermectin guy?
Yeah, it's one of the safest respiratory drugs out there, and COVID was a respiratory disease, and I mean, it's one of those things that I don't understand why people they almost need permission to question or to even say certain things, and maybe I'm just built differently. If ivermectin's safe and there's no downside to taking it, even before the studies were conducted, why not try it? A lot of science is trial and error.
Yeah. Well, that's what he's saying about, but if that's the thing, Doug, if you believe that, why not try out the DEI program?
Yes, and the thing is, we have tried it out, and I think we're seeing the negative downside of ivermectin is if you take too much of it or whatever, you'll throw up. But the negative side of DEI is way more serious, in my opinion. I don't want my son getting a job someday in the future and people questioning did you just get that job because your skin shade's a little darker? Like, it's personal to me.
You know, I was at my previous company. An Indian lady told me that she got a job, and they said it in part because, like, they said it under the table, basically, like it was because you're brown. And she said it made her feel kind of gross.
Yeah, and there's
good.
examples of Disney saying to white men, no, you're not getting promoted because you're white. Did you see that article?
No, hold on. I'm reviewing. We're doing some evidence hacking here. All right, Econoboi, I'm going to unmute you. Let's pull up the evidence.
I was muted this whole time?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Were you? Oh, or you? Sorry, you were muted. Were you talking?
Unbelievable. No, I wasn't talking. These are just a couple things that I found really quick.
All right.
And, the Boston Consulting Group. Oh, you went to the second one first.
Which one would you like me to do? This one?
Either one. I mean,
Boston Consulting Group. Wait a minute. Whoa.
I'll let you read this. I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick.
Peer review. Uh-oh, Doug.
Yeah, you totally screwed up my stuff. But that's okay. Your screen sharing.
Oh, by sharing my screen?
Yeah, that's okay.
Doug, I think Econoboi made the #1 mistake in the world.
What's that?
He sent me a study that's not peer reviewed.
Uh-oh.
Could you imagine if Pierre Corey? Also, you want to see something funny? I'm pulling a Rob Knorr here. I'm seeing them. What are the studies that people cite that claim ivermectin produced positive outcomes in treating COVID? Uh-oh, we're stuck. Error.
You got to use
the system is down.
You got to use Grok on X.
Grok will tell me. Oh, actually, that's actually interesting. Let me go to the conservative AI to back up what I'm trying to get confirmation bias. No, it's an interesting thing. I would be actually curious to see. He said the only study that they put out there was retracted. So the question is, are there any studies that are currently out there that demonstrate
there is.
Positive impact?
I did a live stream on this like years ago, and there's like 20 different studies, and I think a slight majority saw a slight positive impact. A slight minority said that it was little to no impact. So it's like,
yeah.
But the thing is, that whole idea that to demonize people, this is what I hate. To demonize people for even suggesting it, like years ago, back in 2021, and then saying, "Oh, you're just taking this horse dewormer."
Horse dewormer.
Yeah,
now, that was a lie.
What is wrong with people? For that type of shaming, when you're
it's called the Kool-Aid.
When you're trying to like sincerely help people and save their lives.
It's called drinking the Kool-Aid. Ivermectin for prevention and treatment of COVID, a systematic review, meta-analysis. Conflict of interest. We all make money from ivermectin. Where are the results?
The problem, the conspiracy theory is pretty obvious that the reason why you have to poo-poo ivermectin in the year 2021 is because if it has any positive results at all and people start taking it in lieu of something else that Pfizer makes, they're not going to make money.
All right, I'm back.
Correct.
Sorry. I was desperately in need of a bathroom break after the Live and Learn podcast. But what's up? How are we doing?
Econoboi.
Yes.
Mr. Boy.
Yes.
Now, I know you're new to this show. I don't know how much Destiny you watch.
Not a lot nowadays, unfortunately.
That's fair. Well, I cut my teeth in the Destiny orbit, debating, and there's one mistake I'll never make.
All right.
Is sending someone a non-peer reviewed study.
Okay. Sure.
Because what you've sent me is a Boston Consulting. Are you aware that Boston Consulting Group offers DEI training?
Okay. Young.
Yeah.
I understand you're narrativizing. There's a conspiracy. Oh my goodness, Boston Consulting. Nothing they say can be trusted. I understand that Boston Consulting Group.
No. I'm asking you.
It did not. If I could just finish. This is every time people talk about DI, it's the most exhausting thing in the world. Okay.
For your side,
I understand. No, it's not. You guys are you blow these things.
We're just racist. We're just racist.
I didn't say that, dumb fuck. Okay.
I'm racist. I said it.
No, I didn't say
I can't stand white progressives.
Listen,
go ahead.
Boston Consulting Group.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not a peer-reviewed study.
Correct. It's
Okay.
not a
Now,
peer-reviewed
I believe I linked you another one
Oh.
that I had. It was in the Harvard Review. I don't know if they
Nice.
went through some sort of formal peer review process. The only claim that I am making, okay,
Yeah.
is not that there is some infallible truth of the matter that every DEI program must be successful. I've already said that your model matters. I already said that the data, depending on the circumstances, is kind of muddled. Okay.
Yeah.
The challenge that you gave me was to find any evidence to associate DEI with positive outcomes. There's some.
Fair enough.
In a 3-minute Google, I've given you that. Okay.
Fair enough.
What I have said also is that there is not a lot of reason, especially at the time that Trump was talking about, to assume that ivermectin was a relatively good treatment for COVID at the time that he said it. And I think that's perfectly reasonable statement that I've made. That's all I'm saying.
I just found
Mr.
a meta
Boy.
study.
Mr. Boy, this is a review of the emerging evidence demonstrating the efficacy of ivermectin in the prophylaxis treatment of COVID-19.
When was it published? Was it
2021.
after Donald Trump took office?
2020, April 22.
It was after he left office. So again,
True.
at the time that
No,
Trump
no.
said this dumb, idiotic shit, he didn't have good reason to believe it.
And yet, hold on. So you're saying if the study came out afterwards, it would have proved that Trump was ahead of the curve?
No, no, Young, do you think that Trump has an ability?
Well, hold on. Let me ask you a question.
Young, no. You can't get away with saying something so fucking stupid, okay? Do you think
I
that
can,
Young,
and I will. I'm about
do you
to.
think that
Go
Trump
ahead.
has an ability personally to be on the cutting edge of research? Would you trust Trump's
Yes, I do.
cutting edge medical opinions?
I think God is protecting him. That's how he survived the assassination attempt, and I think he has.
Don't be
capacity.
sarcastic, Paul.
No, he brought up a good point.
Okay, so hold on. Here we go. Now, this is a study in the National Library of Medicine.
That's the one I found.
Conclusions. Meta-analysis based on 18 randomized controlled treatments of ivermectin and COVID-19 have found large, statistically significant reductions in mortality, time to clinical recovery, time to viral clearance. Furthermore, results from numerous controlled trials. Now, Econoboi, this does not prove in any way, shape, or form. This is but one study. I would never claim that.
That's a meta study I just provided.
Yeah, but even then, a meta study can be. You can have a bunch of garbage little studies, and the meta study is garbage too. So I would not dare claim that this therefore proves that ivermectin is an effective treatment of COVID. Okay.
And by the way, did Trump ever recommend ivermectin?
I don't know, but hold on, Econoboi. Surely,
Young's
surely,
I didn't make that statement.
Surely, then you would it not be fair that we should say that? Well, just because we can find a few studies that say that DEI programs work, that would not be evidence that it's therefore worth spending money on. Because
yeah, Young, I feel like we've wasted. I've already agreed.
No, we're about to come to the revelation where you're forced to confront reality.
I've already
take
agreed.
a moment, take a breath.
Okay, just say what you're going to say, Young. Go for it.
Do you now accept the utter futility of your plight?
No.
In trying to say that I found a few studies. My vibes are such that there's probably some studies that support DEI and the
That's
positive
not what
impact.
I said.
Well, you produced some studies, right? You found studies that show that there were positive effects of DEI.
You asked me to do that, but what I said before that was that even if the evidence is inconclusive, I have an intuition that these things are important to do. Okay. Because again, by the metrics that a lot of these studies talk about, profitability of corporations, innovative idea, these kind of things, right? There's a values-based reason to say that these things are necessarily what we should be
beside the point. Hold on. Beside the point.
The exact point that I've been making this.
No. This is exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's beside the point. You're not getting my point. You said, even though you don't have conclusive evidence that DEI programs are producing positive results, you have an intuition that we should be doing these things. Okay. Well, even though we don't have conclusive evidence that ivermectin treats COVID, there's a lot of doctors saying we should. So why not apply the same logic?
Well, I mean, it's a question. Do you think that the morality concerning the value of diversity, equity, inclusion, which I think is, maybe you would disagree. I think that's mostly a moral values-based judgment. Right?
So hold on, you're shifting the conversation now.
I'm not shifting it at all.
This is a shifting.
I
would like to ask, because no, this is a question about evidence. It actually doesn't matter whether we're talking about DEI, ivermectin, or anything else. We're comparing X and Y. No. This is purely a standards of evidence question.
It's not.
Let's say there's X and Y. X is DEI, Y is ivermectin. Doesn't matter what it is. If there is not conclusive evidence that X produces the outcome we want, but we may have an intuition that it does, is it justified to spend government tax dollars on it?
Those are two different things that you're talking about.
Yes, X and Y.
No. So if you're talking about, hey, our goal for this particular DEI program is, say, I don't know, from a corporation's perspective, is to increase profitability.
You're changing the subject again. I'm asking you a standards of evidence question because you're changing the subject.
I'm not changing the subject. It was exactly.
I want to hear him out. I want to hear him out. I'm on your side, Mr. Boy.
PineCreek wants to hear me out.
Yeah.
So the question that you asked, Young, was, well, hey, if these DEI programs aren't accomplishing their goals and there's evidence to suggest that, should we continue to do them? Well, obviously, almost tautologically, I would say that if a DEI program has a certain goal and you as the runner of that has a certain goal with the DEI program and it's not accomplishing those goals, obviously you shouldn't continue to do it then. It seems self-defeating. Why would you waste your time? Now, that's different from saying, is DEI a good thing to spend money on? Okay? Because I personally find that diversity and equity and inclusion, as I've defined it previously, are just like good things, right? I think it's
based on vibes.
Based on my moral framework. Now,
AKA,
you're comparing it, if I could just finish, you're comparing that to recommending a medical treatment. I don't think that it's a moral virtue to,
save lives?
To cure your disease using one treatment or another. I think that generally you probably just want the most effective thing at curing a certain disease or helping you with a certain disease, right?
Yeah, right.
Very evidence-based. It's not really a moral question. What's the best treatment?
Well, no, sometimes it is. I'm going to disagree with you slightly here. Like in, let's say, late 2020, before, we really had a good handle on what's going on and about the disease. If, let's say, a doctor has an intuition, just like you have an intuition that DEI is good, if a doctor has an intuition that maybe, just maybe, ivermectin can help, and says to his patients, try it, would you be against that?
I don't. It would depend, I suppose. I mean, I think that off-label treatments are pretty allowed. I mean, you can prescribe things for off-label treatments. I don't think doctors get in like radical amounts of trouble for doing that. If any,
no, but my question about you, like, would you be against? Like, would you have like a negative reaction to that, a positive or neutral? If a doctor said, I really don't know if ivermectin is going to help you, but I know it helps other respiratory type diseases or problems, so let's give it a shot. And post it on Twitter.
And post it on Twitter? I mean...
Would you be against that, personally?
I'm not personally against off-label prescriptions wholesale. When it comes to ivermectin specifically, I think that you'd have to have really good reason to think that you should give a prescription out. Like, I think that if your reason is like, oh, there's a single study with like a very small sample size.
No, the reason I'm giving is a gut intuition. That's it. Would you be against that? Just like your gut intuition is that DEI works and is beneficial.
Again, I have a moral reason for supporting DEI. I don't have a moral reason.
What does that mean? Define moral reason versus gut intuition.
Okay, so
hold on. First off, we support DEI. It's not a moral thing about whether or not it's good to promote equality. It's a question of does it work? That's the issue.
Well, yeah, under what framework, right? That's kind of the whole discussion. Now,
the $1.5 million program, or whatever the DEI program in the workplace is, the question is, do those produce the moral outcomes that you and I both agree, which is, reduction in negative attitudes toward, of people of different races or LGBT identities or whatever. It's not a question of whether we should do that. It's a question of, is spending our tax dollars on the programs that claim to do that valid when there is no conclusive evidence, or rather as much conclusive evidence as there is that ivermectin treats COVID?
Well, yeah, but Young, again, it's a model question that you're asking, because there's evidence that certain models of DEI programs are effective, but then certain aren't, right? So that's why I asked at the very beginning.
Just like ivermectin, yeah.
I've never said ivermectin isn't a good treatment for anything. I mean, it's a medicine. Presumably, it's
so it could be. So hold on. So maybe and we can move on to this because I want to tag team. Boy and I have been beefing, and it's time to destroy Doug here. But I just want to confirm this. So let's do this. Just this is the simplest thing. Would you agree at minimum, Boy? Because we're in the weeds here. We're all the way over here. Would you agree that every single media personality that said that ivermectin was a horse pace and that the people taking it were eating horse dewormer were pushing a bold-faced lie?
Yeah, I would say that some of them were probably. I mean, I think that there was definitely a portion of the media that seems to say that ivermectin was basically just like you're describing. Oh, it's just horse paste. It's nothing. There's no
Yeah, they
potential
called it
medical
a horse
application for it.
dewormer.
Right. And that's obviously not true. And so that rhetoric should
Okay.
probably, I don't know if it's been recanted at this point, but if it hasn't been, it probably should be.
But like that's when Trump talks about fake news, you would agree that in that case, Trump is 100% correct that the people who called ivermectin a horse dewormer to try and get people to not take it, that was a perfect example of fake news, right?
If Trump said that it is fake news to call ivermectin just a horse dewormer, then he is correct. Yeah.
Okay, I gonna
welcome to the Trump train. No,
Mr. Boy.
All right, go ahead. Now we're gonna destroy you, Doug. But
hang on, one final question, Mr. Boy. Back in 2020, 2021, were you on social media, and did you ever utter some type of agreement with people who kind of demonized other people for using ivermectin?
Did I ever agree with people who demonized people that used? I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe.
Do you delete your tweets every so often? Do you use that redact thing?
I did sweep my tweets a while back. I don't know when exactly. But no, I can commit to.
No, it's fine.
At least I don't think that I ever said anything like that.
Doug,
but again, really quick though, my point on ivermectin specifically is, again, it's never been that it's not useful for anything. There might even be evidence that it's useful for COVID now. My only point is that when it comes to Young's question about the irresponsibility of saying it, I think that the president has a responsibility to, at the very least, when he's saying things, have the very, very most basic foundational facts on his side as much as possible.
Okay, no one would disagree with that. Yeah, okay.
Well, but it sounds like you would, though, because it sounds like you guys are fine with Trump
that the
saying,
president should have the most foundational basic facts. Also, I could clip you the moment where you said on this stream there was one study and it was retracted, and that's verifiably false. So I made the mistake of thinking for a moment you were correct.
At the time,
you did not specify that. No, you said.
No, I did. You can go back. Young.
I have. You know what?
Okay, beat up on me now.
Doug, go. Well, hold on. Let me go ahead. Let's
because that was
talk
the
to
point.
him for a minute, because it's so funny. I have the live stream up right now, and I might just
go back. I mean, you can find it. I said that was there a reason at the time that Trump said it, right, to say that ivermectin was a useful cure for COVID, or a useful treatment for COVID at the very least, right? I mean, that's kind of the big.
We're going full autist on this one now.
Okay, go for it.
All right. Doug,
what do you want to talk about? Let's.
What is he bringing up, Mr. Boyd?
I'll bring up in a moment. But you two bicker a little bit more about racism and all that.
Young thinks that I never clarified that it was at the time that Trump said it. I mean, maybe you guys linked a meta-analysis from 2021. Maybe there are a lot of studies that say ivermectin is good to use for COVID at the time that Trump said it in, what was this, 2020 at some point. I'm not sure exactly when the statement was made.
Let me test something.
Yeah,
he's lost him. Lost him for a second there.
I'll be back. One sec. I have to find the exact clip of him saying that there was no study to prove it. And if I don't return with it, it means he did say it, and we're going to move on to it. Here we go.
That's not the argument, PF Young. The argument is that I clarified that. Okay, well, all right. He's boxing shadows, PineCreek. But what did you want to talk about? I don't know.
Well, I do think you brought up a good point that there's a bit of a fundamental difference between the left and right, or at least between, let's say, me and you, that I think it's okay for the president to sometimes guess, whereas I think you might lean towards a president should never guess on stuff like this. Like there was definitely in 2020, like almost nobody knew anything about COVID. It was a new virus. And I think it's okay for a president of the United States to say, well, maybe ivermectin works. I don't think he actually said that, but maybe he did. That doesn't upset me, but I understand, people are different. And other people say, well, he shouldn't have said that because maybe it can do more harm than good. Would you agree with that?
On scientific issues, especially at the time of a pandemic, I would err on being as conservative as possible with your messaging and in terms of what and what would be useful to advocate for, basically, because again, you just medical science is very complicated, especially if you're not a doctor, right? I mean, I would just tend on being very humble in that regard. Now, if you were to say on another issue, I don't know, something a little bit more trivial, like, what? Hey, Mr. President, what do you think the best thing to do with the infrastructure budget is? And the president says, who's not like an infrastructure expert, the president says, I think it would be good to invest in a public busing system. It's like, okay, well, maybe that's wrong, maybe that's right. I don't know. You'd have to look at the evidence, but I don't find that to be very offensive. So,
Mr. Boy, I will offer you a chance to absolve yourself of your lies and deceit.
What is the claim, Mr. Young? What's the claim?
Let us watch.
Is the claim that I said there was
pray.
one study, or is the claim that I never clarified? Okay, go for it, Young. Go for it.
Nope.
But there
Correct.
is a swath of evidence that
Factually
points
wrong.
to- No, you don't think there's any studies that show that DEI programs can be successful? Is that the?
You don't think
actual
there's any
question you're
studies
thinking?
that say ivermectin
Young
corresponds with positive treatment?
You don't think there's any studies that show that DEI programs are effective? Is that what you're saying?
Well, of course there are. I can make a study that
Okay.
There's studies
Do
that
you
say.
think-
Hold on.
do you
Wait,
think-
hold on.
do you
Do you
think
think there
there's
are there any
quantity?
studies? Are there any studies by certified doctors that said that ivermectin is a good treatment for COVID?
I believe there was the one study from the French doctor, which was later retracted. But I mean, other than that, what's the SWOT? I can point to. You can Google it right now. There's probably half a dozen.
I trusted you, Mr. Boy.
What did I say?
believed
That was,
you when you said
was
that. You
wrong
said there
there?
was one study that
I
was
said no,
retracted.
Young.
And
I
yet
said,
that is false. There are a
Young,
multitude of studies that to
Young,
this day remain.
What
and
I said
yet
was
you spew lies through your teeth.
Young. It feels
And
bad
you know
faith
what?
at this point.
You know what?
Young,
You know what the
I-
ultimate part of all this is? No one will care because no one's
Young,
mind is changed on facts or logic. It is
Young,
based on
what I
vibes.
said there was,
And
I
now
believe there's one study. Point me to the swath of evidence. You guys linked the study in 2021. I said, okay, I guess that's one study. It wasn't at the time that Trump. Young, am I
I didn't react. I
incorrectly
reacted
in any
to.
way?
I didn't react to what you were just saying. Now something incredible has just happened on my
Okay.
screen.
Sure, go for it. All right.
A fourth person has entered the arena.
All right.
Oh
All right,
no!
give me.
Which is going to make this a 3-on-1. We're about to destroy Doug.
You know what? You're screwing
moral
up my
superiority.
live stream, Paul.
But Young, I need you to recognize what I'm saying at the very least. Add this for I don't know who this first person is, whoever you want.
He's the worst.
Again, what I said was I believe there's one study. Point me to other studies. You guys pointed me to a study from 2021 after Trump left office. My whole point that
You're
I was
right. I
making-
should never have believed that there was only one study. Now, the time has
to be
come
fair,
to end
what I
Doug's
said,
life.
no, Young, just to be
Spiritual life,
clear,
online life.
no, Young, because you're trying to get away with this, and it's very annoying for me.
I've already gotten away with it. It's already over. I've already went on Destiny's live stream and said maybe Israel did 9/11. Okay, there's nothing you can say here that will damage my reputation. I have the
I'm
face
not trying
tattoo.
to damage your reputation, Young. It just it
It'd be-
doesn't seem you seem to have a
Oh,
misunderstanding.
You're,
of
you're,
what I
you're,
said.
you're,
Paul,
you're saying
let's
I'm
move
slipping
on.
away.
Change
Let's
subject.
move on. I agree. Here we go. It is time to bring on
All right.
the worst, the greatest fascist that has ever lived. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Josiah, and now I got to redo
Josiah,
everything.
So
politics.
yeah, so listen.
Holy
reason I
Mike,
popped
Josiah.
in-
holy Mike problems, Josiah.
Oh yeah,
What?
you're not on your good mic.
You're on your camera, Mike.
it's
Josiah,
about this.
Now you're good
welcome.
now.
Yeah.
Three of
so-
us. Doug, are
No,
you
wait, fuck
prepared?
you. Wait a minute. Wait
to
a
be
minute.
destroyed?
So I just got back from the pet store and I
Yeah.
was listening to this. You were gaslighting the fuck out of Econoboi. If
feels
you
bad.
knock
Gaslighting's
that
not real.
clip-
Gaslighting's
if you
not
knock that clip back by
Yep.
like 2 minutes, maybe a minute and a half,
Yep.
Econoboi says, do you think that there was any good reason, any studies at the time, especially at the time, that justified the use of ivermectin?
2 minutes before that conversation,
It was part of that conversation.
when
And then
I
he
asked,
said
"Are
that-
there any
wait a
studies
minute.
that show the efficacy of COVID?"
But he was clearly referring to what Trump knew at the time. You gaslit the fuck out of him, or you confused yourself and you missed each other in the night. But this idea that
It's
Econoboi, yeah, I'm just
Ju-
saying,
ju-
like,
Josiah,
that
we've
was shady as fuck.
We've moved on from that, Josiah.
Yeah,
We have
We're
moved on.
changing-
That
We're,
was-
we're
We have
changing
moved on.
subjects.
That
We
So
have
was
moved
I've-
on.
so.
I'm glad he
So
clarified
Josiah-
something 2 minutes before in a different conversation, but that's fine.
in the same
I suppose.
conversation.
Well, arguably
right
everything we
after
say
you
is the same
brought it up.
conversation. Okay.
Right after you brought it up.
Well,
Anyway.
but all right, fair enough. But I'm glad we fact checked, right? We all agree now that there's absolutely peer reviewed evidence that suggests that ivermectin is a prophylactic for COVID. correct?
Well, I did see that study named in another peer-reviewed piece of research that is titled "Unethical Uses of Evidence for Ivermectin that Treats COVID." So I don't know.
Well, listen,
I don't know
no
how
child.
legitimate that study is. But,
If that's what it's called, well, no child left behind. We should
science
definitely...
is wrong sometimes. There
That's
was
true.
A great philosopher that said that.
That's
one
true.
point.
That's true. All right, listen. The more important part of the time has arrived. Where Doug...
The 3-on-1. Yes.
Yes, it was originally a 1-on-1, now a 2-on-1, now a 3-on-1.
No.
I'll make the first blow, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Douglas.
Yes, sir.
The Trump administration is currently engaged in ethnic cleansing. It is the most disgusting waste of American tax dollars I've ever seen in my life. Why in God's name should we support an administration that is expelling the Gazans from their own land and saying we'll turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East? How disgusting.
Hey, nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect. I see.
No, okay. The serious answer is I don't view it as ethnic cleansing, and neither do you.
You don't view it as ethnic. What is the definition? What is what
I think
what is
of
the definition
death.
of ethnic cleansing?
I think of death when I hear ethnic cleansing.
Ethnic cleansing doesn't require death. It requires the removal of people from their land.
Okay. Okay.
In mass.
Yeah. So my stance on this is very similar to Ben Shapiro, the great Ben Shapiro, amazing, smart Jewish man. It seems like the last, 50, 60, 70, 80 years, we get a cycle going, right? We have peace for a little bit, and then we get fighting, then peace a little bit, and we get fighting, we got rebuilding, and then demolition, and then rebuilding and demolition. Why not try something different? Now, if you should call it ethnic cleansing, I'm willing to bite that bullet. Let's do some ethnic cleansing. Let's move all the Jews out of Israel and bring them to Arizona. Or
I agree with that.
Well, that's ethnic cleansing.
No, but it's voluntary. It's allowing them to come back to God's true.
What do you mean it's voluntary?
Hold on. The point is Palestine.
See, you want to change it. As soon as I bring up the Jews, you say, no, that's not ethnic cleansing if we do that. But
because no one's doing it to Israel. It's happening to Gaza.
Okay, fair enough. I'll let you pass on that one. The Palestinians lost a war. There's consequences to losing wars. And that is you lose your territory if it's a war about territory. So I don't know where you live, Paul, but you probably live on you probably live on some tribal land right now. Can you give it back? Can you give it back to the Native Americans of that tribe?
No, but if you know what? If the Native Americans came to me and said, I used to live here 500 years ago and tried to ethnically cleanse me,
yeah,
it'd be fucked up.
What would you do?
I'd fight back.
Okay, and what if you lost?
I would appeal to the International Criminal Court.
And what the international people did diddly squat. What would you do? You got to.
Well, I guess
suck it up.
I don't know. If Adolf Hitler came in and just threw me and everyone I knew in a gas chamber, then I'd fight back.
But that's the point I'm making.
That's not the question. The question is the morality of it.
Okay, the morality of it is that war sucks, and that I actually don't think there is any morality to it.
All right.
I think I'm a very practical.
I forgot we're dealing with a loving, compassionate conservative. So let's just do the American interest.
No,
argument.
because it's
Josiah and Econoboi, could you please explain to me?
Paul, who is this? Your show or mine?
It's on my stream.
It's on my stream.
I have more viewers right now, so therefore I have the
What?
Democratic majority. Josiah and Econoboi, can you explain to me or Doug how it is in America's interest for as Trump said, the United States to own Gaza? Can either of you explain that to me?
It's nice beachfront property, I hear. So that could be one reason.
Yeah.
Jared Kushner wants to develop it. I mean, listen, obviously what Trump is proposing is super fucked up. To me, it's like the reason that I would focus on other issues is because as fucked up as it is, he is proposing it. There's no telling what he will actually do. I mean, it's a war crime if he does it. But I have no idea where Trump will end up on this side of the issue. It does undermine this notion that he's a peacemaker and a dove.
What would your solution be, Josiah?
To what?
To the conflict between the 100-year conflict between the Jews and the Palestinians.
I don't think that there is a solution that
Okay.
America can broker.
Okay.
Right. Well, hold on. Why does it? Hold on. Just like funding DEI programs in Serbia, why is it our problem, Doug? Why do my tax dollars have to go to Israel?
They don't.
To support this bullshit.
They don't.
Yeah, but Trump is not only continuing allowing tax dollars to go there, he's then
I'm
saying,
against that.
We'll clean up Gaza before that.
It's actually the only foreign aid that he did not attempt to freeze.
Yeah, it's kind of fucked up.
I before Trump was even elected, I made my stance on Ukraine and Israel very clear. I'm not for funding either
Why
country.
don't you?
No, let me take the. If the majority didn't support that PineCreek, I mean, isn't that wrong?
I think the majority actually do not want our tax dollars to go into foreign interests. Except Israel is one of the exceptions because there's so many evangelical Christians in this country.
Well, let's just say that the majority was against it. Wouldn't that make it wrong?
Wouldn't it make it wrong if they were?
It means we shouldn't be.
You're sending money to a foreign interest that a majority of people aren't in favor of. Isn't that wrong?
Why is Trump doing that?
Yeah, he's going. It's not wrong, but it's a mistake. That's what I would say because he won't get reelected. Well, he can't because he's already had 2 terms.
Freudian slip there, Mr. Conservative.
Yeah, so you agree that Trump is?
I just said I'm against providing.
Why are you defending it then? Why are you defending it? Why don't you call him out for it?
I'm saying it's a possible good idea.
I see. If Joe Biden had proposed this idea, I suspect that you'd be singing a different tune.
No, incorrect.
Interesting. All right. Well, we've sufficiently destroyed Doug, but
I thought the conversation was like about Trump's 3 weeks. Are you?
Yeah, this has happened in the last 3 weeks. I don't know if you've been paying attention.
But I mean, in terms of like the overall effort, like, are you, Doug? Are you happy?
Veered off.
Young, are you happy with the first 3 weeks of the?
I'm not particularly happy that we're having American troops, arguably, it seems, even though he's gone back and forth and been fucking fiddly with it. It seems like he's committing American troops.
Paul, he means in general, not just this top, right?
Yeah, and just in general, yeah. And
sure,
but
this
break it down by issue, but like, yeah, I'd like to know where you two stand.
I'm very happy.
On Trump's overall performance?
Yeah.
It's too early to tell.
Well, no, yet so far. That's what Josiah asked.
Yeah.
So far, are you happy?
I don't know. I'm not. No, I'm very worried about the future. I think things are going to be get much worse before they get better.
But are you happy about the last 3 weeks? Not the future.
No, not particularly. I like that U.S. aid is being cut.
Oh God.
Do you like DEI being cut?
Yeah, you know what I like? I like that $1.5 million of DEI programs are not being cut. I don't know. It's too early to tell.
What about? Let me.
Too early to tell about the last 3 weeks.
Are you a free speech guy? Are either of you free speech guys? You free
I like
press
free
guys?
speech.
Oh, yeah.
I hate free speech.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
That's if you're a YouTube creator, you have to be.
What do you think about Trump kicking out the Associated Press from a White House event because they wouldn't recognize the Gulf of Mexico being renamed as the Gulf of America?
I think that's a little petty.
Sounds like something Trump would do.
He has the right to do
that.
that.
Is that a good free speech, free press attitude?
No. To me, it's petty, but it's not like a free speech issue because the Associated Press can say whatever they want in any other arena.
Oh, so for example, then you would support the next Democratic president kicking out any conservative outlet.
Yes.
Fox News get the fuck out.
Yes.
Paul, what about you?
Is it a free speech issue?
I think that when you're limiting access to the president or the White House,
does any
important public figure,
does any news which news organizations have a right to those?
Yeah, like I don't think there's one specific news organization that has a right to be there. It's just a broad array of It's not like Trump kicked out everybody.
So wait a minute. It's a matter of your rationale, right?
Yeah, free speech is about curtailing what people are allowed to say.
For instance, if you were to say, "Oh, well, I don't think that this organization has a right to be at this White House press event because it's like a YouTube channel that gets 3 concurrent viewers on a live stream," well, that's probably a fair reason.
Sure.
But if you were to say, "Well, I'm not going to let this major news organization in because they're not playing the game of pretend that I have willed upon Americans by not calling the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America," that seems like a bad reason.
If Joe Rogan said,
I agree to that. Mr. Boy.
If Joe Rogan said, "I want Jamie to go attend the White House," does he have a right to that? Because he has a much bigger platform than the Associated Press
or Destiny.
It's just a matter
of they're
like
credentialed. He's not. That's
credentialed in what way?
If he were credentialed press and they kept him from attending because
what is credentialed press? Who gives the Associated Press?
Not just any journalist, any reporter can enter the White House because you have security concerns and everything else. You have to be credentialed. You have to be verified. You have to pass.
Who determines who gets that?
the White House.
Okay, so if the White House revoked AP's credentials and then said you couldn't get in, then it's fine.
Well, no. Well, it's within their rights to do so. I'm asking, do you think it's okay for them to do so?
I don't think it's probably. Do I think it's okay? Maybe, probably not. It'd be better. I would prefer tougher questions get asked.
Let's ask. I'm curious. That's so interesting. You know, you being an enlightened centrist free speech guy.
Oh, no. I'm an anti-centrist. I talked to J-Rag for the first time. I'm an anti-centrist.
So, do you remember when Fox News had to pay the single biggest defamation settlement 2 years ago, $800 million because they signal boosted Trump's lies about the 2020 election? Remember that?
Oh,
what if Joe Biden?
They're not lies if you believe they're true.
What if Joe Biden had said, you know what? I'm the president. I've got the power here. You guys had to pay nearly $1 billion because you lied about our fucking elections. You're objectively worse than CNN and MSNBC because they've never had to pay anything like that. So I'm going to order my DOJ to investigate you. I'm just going to have them comb through everything and see if you all broke any laws. Would you have a problem with that?
Who is this being directed at? Me personally?
Fox News.
No, that would be good for their lying. If they're lying.
So you support government investigating the media?
If they're suspected of committing a crime.
What if you just launched the investigation on the grounds that they lied? They had to pay a defamation settlement, $800 million. He uses that as a predicate to say, you're obviously not trustworthy. You're very influential. There's no telling what else you've lied about, other people you've potentially defamed, any sort of fraud you may have contributed. So I'm going to order my DOJ to investigate you, Fox News, a conservative outlet that I don't like.
I think there would have to be more probable cause than that.
Yeah, I don't know what that. I don't know.
Well, you would have to have probable cause to press charge. To
I hate Fox News, right? Fox News is trash.
But my point is, what's your limit in terms of the relationship between the government and the media? Because weren't you a big Twitter files guy? Weren't you like really concerned about the government influencing, pressuring, meddling with media? Am I making that up? I could have swore that you were like.
I'm concerned with censorship, no matter which White House is doing it, Trump or Biden.
And you don't,
especially when tech billionaires like Elon Musk.
It's kind of censorious to kick the Associated Press out of a White House event because they won't call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. I'm not saying that it's a world-ending.
Yeah, I think it's stupid. Bad.
Gotcha.
Do I think it's the same level of, like, for example, suppressing the Wuhan coronavirus theory? No, not even close.
I'm not asking you if it's the same, sweetheart. Okay. I'm asking if it violates your principles.
Baby girl, baby girl, you ain't buying me dinner yet.
Because I've got other examples for you. I'm just asking, given your stated principles about free speech and free press and government overreach, if it bothers you that Trump, within 3 weeks, has kicked the Associated Press out of the White House.
It bothers. Yes, it bothers.
Yeah, because one of my criticisms of you is I think you grade Trump and the Republicans on a curve, and this seems to me like an example. I think if Biden were to do this, this would be like you would talk about this endlessly. If it's bad for liberal, if it's bad for Democratic,
hold on. How do I go about proving you wrong? Because I know for a fact I wouldn't give two shits if Biden said Fox News is not allowed in the White House anymore. I'd go, good, fire Sean Hannity while they're at it.
So Trump's FCC, his Federal Communications Commission, is investigating ABC, NBC, CBS, but not Fox News, even though there were complaints against all of them under the Biden administration. The Biden administration's FCC said, you know what, we're dismissing the complaints because we don't want to be seen as chilling free speech and free press, even against conservative outlets. Disgusting. We're just going to get rid of it. Trump's FCC comes in and says, you know what, we're going to actually resurrect the ones against the media outlets Trump dislikes, ABC, NBC, CBS, and we're going to protect Fox News, the most pro-friendly of the networks that were the subject of complaints.
Yep, that's bad.
He's investigating CBS for the Kamala Harris interview. They are pressuring Kamala Harris, CBS,
for censoring it. He wants them to uncensor it
for what?
Free speech.
That already happened.
What do you mean for censoring it?
Uncensoring it.
Yeah. They censored the Kamala Harris interview. They cut out portions that they didn't air.
You can't be serious. You can't be serious.
Well, I'm not. This is my point. Okay, I don't know what concession are you? What concession are you trying to draw from me?
My point is that Trump is already waging war on the press, and I figured that a Twitter Files guy might be concerned about what he's doing 3 weeks in.
What does that even mean? What does a Twitter Files guy mean?
Didn't you think that
what do you think I believe about the Twitter Files that you don't also believe?
That the Twitter Files revealed absolutely damning and inappropriate, perhaps illegal, coercion by
Both the Trump
federal
and
government-
Biden White Houses?
by the
Yes.
federal government against media outlets.
No one disputes that. What's disputed is whether or not it was just Biden. And a lot of Republicans say it was just the Biden White House that did this. And it's like, no, the Trump White House asked just as many people to get censored off Twitter. And Elon Musk didn't leak that in the Twitter files because he got to choose what files to leak, which is a little fucking weird, isn't it? To do the bidding of a technocratic billionaire
Agreed.
who's now
I
standing next
actually
to the
love that. I
president.
love that, Chris. I love that you're skeptical of the Twitter files. That
It's almost like I'm
recognize
consistent
that
as
you
a radical
recognize it doesn't
anti-centrist.
paint the.
I thought this was supposed to be about me.
Well, we're getting there. I want you to talk about.
I don't know what concession you think I'm not able to
I got a
make on this.
question.
So Trump is
I'd love to
already
hear it.
within 3 weeks using the powers of the state
Yeah.
to go after media outlets he doesn't like and to protect media outlets he does like
That's
in
no good. That's
unprecedented
bad.
ways.
Yes.
And somebody who's a free speech, free press person who was really Trump curious throughout this past election,
Oh yeah.
you should not only condemn that, you should also probably
condemn that.
engage in some introspection about why you backed a candidate who was so openly
I
censorious.
voted for Jill
on-
Stein.
I heard that, sweetheart. I get it. But you
Why-
were Trump
Hey,
Call me
curious
Josiah,
sweetheart.
Josiah,
Call me
why do you keep
sweetheart.
calling Paul sweetheart?
One more time.
because he is a sweetheart. Because I am fond of Paul. I have a
No,
deep
no.
personal affection for
Do you think
Paul.
this helps the dialogue?
I do, because it's a,
Seems like a nice
it's
thing
a
to
term of
say.
endearment. Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
I'm
Maybe you guys
I'm-
know each
I'm-
other better
I'm
than I
still
think
deciding, Doug. I'm still deciding if it helps the dialogue or not. I kind of like the
I
second
think
time.
he's smiling, so I think it
A
like
little
helps.
bit.
the
I don't know.
dialogue.
We'll
know
see.
what
We'll see.
you're
We'll
talking
see.
about.
Josiah,
what
Trump
was your
is a
question?
bad president, probably overall.
Very and censorious, right? He likes to go after media.
Oh yeah, he
outlets
said he
doesn't
would
like.
deport people for burning the American
Yeah,
flag. It's
exactly.
almost like I've said this over and over again, and you are projecting your foolish views about radical anti-centrists such as myself, thinking I'm a conservative when I'm not.
Okay, I got a question.
Grade Trump on a curve throughout the
PineCreek,
entirety.
please
of
Go
that.
ahead.
What's your
Go
question?
ahead.
Okay, so Trump is how many executive orders has he done already? Like up to over 100?
Probably
Uh,
I think hundreds.
a
I think,
billion?
at this point.
Yeah. So
All of them.
let's talk about some that I strongly agree with, and let's see if you agree with it. One of them was threatening to withhold federal funding from schools if they let males play sports with females. Do you guys agree with that?
No,
No.
I think it's dumb.
Why?
It's
I
a
don't
niche
think this is a
bullshit
big
issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think
Okay,
it should be left
but-
to the
but-
school boards.
Well, I assume Paul, you agreed with me, but maybe you don't.
I don't think that. I think that we should stop taking away the responsibility of parents to care about what's going on in their own schools and force them to do it. If there's unfair shit going on in your school, join a school board, and fix it yourself. Don't rely on the federal government to do it.
Okay,
Do you
I understand
now
that you
that-
guys might say that it's an irrelevant issue, it's a very small issue, and I get that. But do you really want males to compete against females in sports?
Is this
I think-
elementary schools?
Yeah.
Because I don't care.
K through 12,
And arguably, maybe
and
they
even
should in
collegiate.
elementary.
NCAA just announced that they're
Okay, well,
going to.
pre-puberty, you almost certainly it doesn't matter. I
I don't
doubt that's what's
support
being
any.
targeted.
I don't support any unfair or disproportionate matchings in competitive sports. Be they
Wow, hot
on,
take.
be they on sex, be they on weight, be they on reach or anything else. I'm
Skin
not a sports
color?
guy.
Black
So
people
what-
are faster than white people. Look it
So
up.
can
All
you
the
say,
black people are
Josiah,
white.
categorically
So-
that you do not want males to compete against females in sports?
No, not unless it like materially like matters. My understanding is that when competitive sports take place, and I'm not a competitive sports guy, I don't watch boxing,
we
UFC,
can
MMA, or anything like that. Contact thing. Shut up, Paul. I'm a Second Amendment enthusiast all the time. Right.
Don't say it.
Okay. So anyway, so I don't know what the standards or the criteria on how they evaluate these things. My understanding is they do based on class.
And- Yeah, I was just
What?
gonna say, PineCreek.
Yeah.
You don't agree with that either, right? I mean, you can go to any elementary school, wrestling tournament, and they're gonna have girls and boys competing.
think
against
they
Yeah,
even have the high
but then
school level.
but then it's announced as co-ed. But I'm saying, let's say you announce a team, let's a grade 6 soccer team for girls, and a male wants to play. I'm asking a very simple question: do you support a male competing in grade 6 girls soccer? And it's announced not as co-ed, but it's girls.
No, but it's the school board's responsibility to handle it, not the federal government. You're taking away the job of parents of caring what's going on in their own schools.
Okay, so Paul says no, he does not support it. What about you, Josiah?
Unless it like produces some sort of like wildly unfair advantage, I don't have an issue with
Do you
it.
think
Like,
males have advantages over females?
as a general proposition, but Econoboi just gave you examples where there are male and female contact sports and wrestling and shit like that. It happens. This is a
Right,
niche
but that's not the
issue that
question.
All right, wait, hold on. I don't want to get in the issue of what trans people in sports.
Wait a minute.
Oh, we've got
it is.
Go to the next.
You asked, do I support it? And I'm giving you my rationale why it's not a categorical yes or no.
Can I just ask, PineCreek, isn't it bizarre? You know, we had the Republicans come out just now with their budget resolution where they're talking about cutting $800 billion out of Medicaid. The first thing that you could think of, to bring up to us, maybe it's just in the list of executive orders, was fucking trans people in sports. Like,
You know why I brought it up?
PineCreek.
You know why I brought it up?
Sure. Was it the first on the executive order list? Maybe
No. I brought it up for a specific reason, because 79% of the American public favor males not competing against females, and so I'm trying to get you in that 20% to say it publicly that you're that by far the minority.
Wait, why are you appealing to the popularity of a thing? What's your point?
To make you feel bad.
Well, that doesn't work. I'm a Democrat.
All right, next one.
Or special. No. Let me rephrase. To make you feel special that you're in the 20%.
That doesn't work for us. We're Democrats. Our positions are almost always more popular.
Let me get JJ
Why would
McCullough
that
on.
bother us?
Except on this issue, right?
Congratulations, you found 1 in 100 issues where
There we
you.
go.
Okay, let's go to the next
popularity
one. Let's go to the
contest.
next one.
Don't make it about trans people.
Do you guys
You're
support?
like the high school geek desperate to be prom king. It doesn't make any sense.
So the next one is one of the other executive orders was about the border. I'm not sure if the military going to the border was an executive order, but I think it was. Do you support the military going to the border?
I don't support the
No.
military engaging in domestic law enforcement.
Is
I'm down with
people
it.
coming
I think
from foreign countries domestic?
I think we have border patrol for that reason. We have domestic law enforcement agencies, multiple agencies, including border patrol and ICE and others as well, redundant agencies, as a matter of fact, that carry that issue. I think once you get the military involved, it's a slippery slope, and it erodes that line that we've established through Posse Comitatus for probably 100 years.
I remember this. The
that-
Kami
that-
Kami Ah. Hold
that
on,
we
Doug.
want
Doug, did he reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy?
Yes, he did. That's another
Okay, what do you
executive
guys think
order.
about that? Because that, my understanding, is the one that was pretty bipartisan. Yeah, this is a good move.
There is no credible data that shows that the Remain in Mexico policy contributed to a massive decline at the border. As a matter of fact,
What?
after
no
the Remain in
credible
Mexico border policy was implemented under Trump, you still saw contacts at the southern border increase. You should look up the work of David Beyer at the Cato Institute. He's a libertarian, right-coded libertarian. He's been debunking this shit for years.
Like I seem to remember the amount of contacts with immigrants at the southern border spiking when Trump was president, and then he initiated the executive order of Remain in Mexico, and then it fell, and then Biden won, and then he got rid of that, and then it spiked again. You don't see?
No, you should look back at the chart. It actually, when Trump left office, it was climbing on his watch.
Yeah, it was
climbing more.
Wait, border
No, wait a minute, you said
contacts
it
is not
dropped
the
those-
relevant.
you
No,
said
no,
it
no,
dropped.
no. Yes, it dropped immediately after, and then it slowly went back up. I admit that. But then Biden won and got rid of that executive order, Remain in Mexico, and then it skyrocketed. Do you disagree?
Remain in Mexico continued to be implemented under Biden until I think the court finally said that he had the authority to end the policy. I think
that
it
was when
2022.
early 2021 or something.
I think it was 2022 when the court said that actually Biden can rescind Remain in Mexico, and that's when he finally did. It was 2022
Yeah,
or
and
2023.
what
He
happened
announced his
to
intention to get rid of it.
what
but it
happened
was
to the
still
number
being
of
implemented.
asylum seekers? It went,
Remain in Mexico.
it
But
went-
Remain in Mexico didn't affect the number of asylum seekers. We're talking about
that
we're
entered
talking
the
about-
country. Yes, I think it did. Didn't
Yeah,
it?
hold on, because just to be clear here, we agree that there is no way. You say obviously that data is relevant, but you agree that there is no way. It's literally impossible to do a univariate analysis and say that one specific policy produced one clear outcome. We have to use some level of logic and mechanistic thinking and say, well, if we create a policy that says asylum seekers wait in Mexico rather than the United States, we can be reasonably sure that will reduce the number of asylum seekers in the United States. Correct?
Intuitively, that makes sense, but the data there's no data that I am familiar with. And again, I beg you, because this is like some of the most in-depth studies you'll find on this. If you look at the Cato Institute's work on this, they actually debunk this notion that the Remain in Mexico is the way that conservatives present it.
Okay,
But I
again,
agree.
this is the
paper,
fundamental issue.
In theory, yeah.
Do you agree that okay, hold on. So you're saying that you can find very high quality studies from the Cato Institute that say
research,
that this,
I don't know if you call it studies.
fine,
but like,
research that these did not produce that effect.
Yeah.
Okay, could I find similar levels of research from the Cato Institute that says raising the minimum wage is a bad thing?
Yes.
Do you believe raising the minimum wage is a bad thing?
They're libertarian coded. I think.
Do you believe that raising the minimum wage is a bad thing given the research the Cato Institute has produced?
I think that raising the minimum wage has downstream effects that could be negative, which is why raising the minimum wage has never been like a major issue for me. But I'm not an economist. Econoboi would be the one you'd want to ask that question to.
Econoboi, is raising the minimum wage a bad thing?
No, I don't think so.
But the Cato Institute's produced research that says it is.
You know, it's this weird thing. I disagree with them on that, I guess. You know.
So we found two now executive orders that, like Josiah, you said that the Democrats usually side with the majority of Americans, and I happened to pick the one that was against the.
PineCreek, you keep on bringing up the opinion of the majority of nobody cares about this. PineCreek, nobody
democracy's cringe. Democracy's cringe. PineCreek.
Like you can say things are good and bad. I mean, PineCreek, if do you have an opinion? Do you have any opinions that aren't in line with the majority of people?
I'm just responding.
Otherwise, you wouldn't vote Republican.
I mean, what do you do?
I'm just responding to Josiah's claim that Democrats seem to be in line with the majority of Americans.
No, I'm saying I said the Democratic policies tend to be more popular than Republican policies.
Okay, and I just found two.
Okay, hold on.
Holy shit, you found two policies.
I found two
Trump that are popular,
and they're a big two.
Right, we have two options. I could continue to poke this problem that I just unraveled, which is Josiah just said the Cato Institute's produced research that says those border policies did not work.
Anything besides that. Good God.
And then Mr. Boy said he doesn't care what he disagrees with the Cato Institute's research. So can you two figure out whether we should trust the Cato Institute's research?
Look, Young,
or is it only when it suits?
Look, Young, if you want to have a debate with Josiah about the credibility of the Cato Institute, that's whatever. Do that another day, right? But if we're talking about the Trump administration,
that's a good move. You should remove the very point that I just made that shows a contradiction in your guys' side here.
Well, just to be clear, I'm not necessarily agreeing with everything that Josiah is saying.
Oh, really? Hold on. Really? What do you disagree with? What has he said so far that you disagree with?
I said that I had mixed feelings about raising the minimum wage. Intuitively, this is something that I would want to do, but my understanding is that there is competing data which suggests that it would have downstream effects which could be negative.
Okay, so fair enough. All right, so hold on. So just to be clear, you're saying
Econoboi's position is overall he supports raising.
Okay, I understand that. I understand. Why do you have mixed feelings about raising the minimum wage, but not the Remain in Mexico policy reducing border asylum seekers in the United States?
You just asked me if I thought that was a good thing. I just said there was no data to support that it was actually effective.
Why did Biden remove it then?
Because if I remember correctly, Biden thought that it was an unnecessary impediment to
what?
Asylum seeking.
Okay, listen to what you just said. It was an unnecessary impediment, which means it is a way to stop it to asylum seeking.
I mean like with respect to like the humanitarian dangers that it would cause because it would
see, now we're getting to the feel sorry for immigrants.
Right. So some of what we've been through this before, right? So some of the policies I support are based on empathy.
Okay.
Right.
Sure. But now let's get back to your claim that there's no evidence that the Remain in Mexico impacts the amount of asylum seekers crossing the border, right?
Provide some, right. So provide some rather than asking about.
Oh, I don't know of any, but it seems like the Biden administration.
So wait, so you support the Remain in Mexico, but you don't have any evidence?
I was being facetious. I think this chart right here is the evidence you need.
Sure.
Josiah, there's an entire field of thinking that says economics is too. We can't even predict the price of the stock market.
It says PineCreek Doug is PineCreek conservative atheist is blocking the chart.
I'm gonna remove us.
Oh yeah,
two people for a moment.
Oh, now you're screwing my live stream up.
Okay, did everyone see the chart?
No, it's still.
I have to do it.
Blocking the bars. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, I see the chart. I mean, PineCreek. I guess, yeah. Whatever. You disagree with Josiah on that issue. Okay. For God's sakes, PineCreek. Okay, well, here's an interesting question for PineCreek. PineCreek,
but-
what's the biggest thing that you disagree with Trump on in the first 3 weeks?
The biggest
it-
thing I
is it
disagree with.
$800 billion from Medicaid, cutting food stamps by a shitload. What are the
Don't lead me down your path.
I'm just
Let
some
me think.
example.
Let me ruminate. Was not for the pardons of the violent protesters on January 6th. They should not have been pardoned.
So do you think? Well, here's a question. Do you think that if the Republicans get their wish list, right, of cutting that $800 billion out of Medicaid, do you think that would have a bigger impact on people than the pardoning of however many hundreds of January 6th protesters that were violent in nature? I mean, what do you think is the bigger issue?
It depends if what that 800 billion all entails. Like, I believe there's probably misuse, waste, and fraud in every department of government. And so if part of that 800 billion is getting rid of that, that's a good thing. And I think we all agree on that. Yes?
I don't agree. The best way
You
to
don't
get rid
agree
of waste,
getting
fraud, and
rid of
abuse-
waste is a good thing? And fraud
PineCreek,
and misuse?
The best way to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse in the government is not to just cut the government's budget. And in fact, you oftentimes would do the opposite, where you would invest in state capacity to ensure.
But do we know if these cuts
that
are targeted or
being
not?
run properly. Well, right now, what we have is the Republican wish list, right? So I'm talking hypothetically, if this bill were to get passed, where they cut $800 billion out of Medicaid, would that be, would you think that would be a
And
good
again,
thing
my
or not?
answer is it depends if they're doing targeted cuts
You said 8
to remove
billion
waste,
for Medicaid?
fraud, misuse.
What is Medicaid? Isn't that the defense? What is Medicaid's budget per year?
So Medicaid's budget per year is, I think per year it's several $100 billion, but the $800 billion that I'm referencing is the resolution that they proposed to cut $800 billion over the 10-year budgetary window. So this would in effect be about a 11% cut per year in the annual Medicaid
Okay,
budget.
that seems a lot more reasonable to me than 800 in 1 year. That's what it almost sounded like you were saying.
Well, I mean, do you think it's trivial to cut the Medicaid budget by 10%? I mean, this is a
Yeah,
gigantic.
this is a
Maybe.
big
I
difference
don't know.
between the left and the right. The left seems to think you can never cut such a precious and very humane thing.
When did I say
but,
that?
But no, I'm giving my psychologizing
Impression.
here. My
your
impression.
opinion
right.
about the left broadly and not the people
Yeah,
you're talking to.
But
Okay.
I think that if we were all honest with each other, that there's waste and fraud in Social Security, there's waste, misuse, and fraud in Medicare. And if these cuts are targeting that, I think all five of us here would say, yeah, we should do that. We should cut out this waste, misuse, and fraud. Am I wrong?
These cuts aren't doing that necessarily, PineCreek.
Well, they
There's not
haven't
a
been
line
done
item-
yet, so you don't know.
PineCreek, if I could just finish. There's not a line item in the federal budget for fraudulent
fraud and abuse.
Medicaid claims, right? It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna spend $50 billion this year on fraudulent Medicaid claims. Like that's not how that
Okay,
works, right?
Econoboi, I want you to tell me.
just
I want you to be very honest with me. If, because we're talking hypothetically of the future, right? When none of us have a crystal ball. If these $80 billion a year is targeted towards waste and fraud for Medicare, would you be for it?
PineCreek,
Yes or no?
You're saying something that is logically impossible to be true.
It's
You
impossible to
cannot-
have misuse in Medicare?
PineCreek, if I say, hey, I think that there's fraud in this department, I think that there is, so I'm going to cut it by 10%. Does that mean that the fraud has reduced by 10%?
Did you hear what I said? I said targeted.
Did you hear what I
target,
said?
yes, and that is totally, you're answering a question I never asked. Now, I'm going to ask it again, and I want you to be very, very honest with me, and same with you, Josiah. Look into the camera and say very honestly your opinion. If, hypothetically, this $80 billion a year of cutting Medicare targets the misuse, waste, and fraud, would you support it?
If they found $80 billion worth of fraud, waste, and abuse in Medicare and cut those $80 billion, no, I wouldn't have a problem with that. That's not what's being proposed, and that's Econoboi's whole point. They didn't say they've identified $80 billion worth of fraud and they're cutting it. They're talking about a blanket cut off the top. What's so hard about
If
that?
let me ask you a question. If a
Wait a
corporation,
minute, wait, can he answer that?
Yeah,
Because
to
he
me,
asked-
to me,
wasn't expecting
to
an
me,
answer.
my answer is the same as okay. I hear what you're saying. Let me repeat back to you that they're not proposing targeted; they're proposing a blanket cut. To me, this is very similar to deportation, the deportation issue. When Trump says things like, and the Republicans say things like, "We're going to do mass deportations," and then later on you learn, but we're going to start with the really violent criminals. I think this is probably going to be similar with things like Medicare.
Because mass is general. It doesn't refer to a specific fixed
Right.
amount.
And
Any
broad
billion
cuts is
refers to a
general.
specific-
That's the parallel I'm making.
all right,
So-
hold on. Can we, because obviously we agree that if it was wasteful, we should cut it. Yeah. Hold on. Can we find some common ground here? Do we all agree that the defense
We just
budget
did.
should probably be cut?
Right.
I don't know.
PineCreek agrees that if the Trump administration does something totally different what it's proposing now, then it might be a good thing.
Hold on. Do we all agree that the defense budget should be cut? Yes?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I think we spend more than the next like 14 countries combined. I'm not sure we produce that total worth of results. So as a general heuristic, yeah. And I think they haven't passed an audit in some 5 years.
It's the passing of the audit that makes me say that it should be cut. I think that, however, what people have to keep in mind with the Department of Defense is that a ton of the money that goes into the Department of Defense isn't like colonialism or stuff like that. It's a lot of it's research, right? A lot of that is very good research. A lot of it is
What
benefits.
percent of it?
Well, I'm not. I don't know what the exact percentage would be, but
what rough estimate? Because it's a very big difference if it's 5 or 50.
It's definitely not 50%. I mean, it's going to be some margin at the top, but a lot of it also goes towards. I think about $100 billion a year of it goes towards benefits for veterans, which I think that's money that should be pretty consistent, right?
What's the defense budget right now?
Well, it's a matter of what you think should be cut,
900 billion, I think.
Again,
how about all of the money spent on overseas bases that we probably don't need?
Yeah,
well, it's trivial to say that we don't need, right? I mean, I think we tend to need the bases that we have overseas, or at least maybe define what that means.
Why is the null hypothesis that what we've done so far is correct?
Well,
not the null hypothesis.
What are the bases What are the bases abroad that you think we?
I don't know. Do we need them? Do we need them in Germany and France and England and Spain,
Absolutely,
or just maybe one?
Yes. Yeah,
really?
It's a good thing to have a military presence broadly in the world.
Interesting. You don't think that produces negative outcomes? How certain are you of that statement?
I don't think that the military bases in Germany produce negative outcomes.
No, do you think that U.S. having a constant military presence all over the world produces good outcomes?
Yeah, Young, you've done this several times in our conversation where you've changed the thing that I said was reasonable.
Yeah, back to what my original question was. Yeah.
Well, no, but your original question was a tautology. It's trivial. Oh,
I don't even know what that means.
The bases, it's okay. The bases that we don't need, should we still have them? It's like, well, okay, but you're begging the question. What are the bases we don't need? You referenced Germany. I said, well,
so let me ask you a question. You don't think if Donald Trump tomorrow said we're shutting down one military base in the world, but he's not going to tell you which one, you'd say that's probably bad?
On net, probably it's bad, yeah.
Really? There's not a single military base in the entire planet that is unnecessary?
You've done this thing where you've switched the thing that you're saying, right? So at first you said, well, if it's just a random military base on the planet, that's a question of, on average, are our military bases necessary? I would say, well, on average, they are.
Okay, fine. No, pick
really
one.
quick, John, if I could just finish. So now, if you were to say, are there any military bases that could be unnecessary? I'd say, maybe there are some. I'd have to look into it a little bit more. I'm not sure.
Okay, so you'd be okay with reducing the number of military bases potentially?
Young, yes, but that's not what you said originally. You said, shouldn't we get rid of the unnecessary bases?
Okay. You need to.
So what are the unnecessary bases, Young? Give some specific examples.
I don't know. How about we only need one in Germany or France? We don't need both. Why do we need them in Germany? Why do we need it in France and Germany and not just Germany?
My understanding of a lot of the work that these bases do in Europe, a lot of it is military cooperation with our allies. I think that's a good, set of work to engage in.
We can't do it with just a base in Germany?
No, I think logistically that would be probably highly, you would have French troops coming over the border to Germany to train with Americans.
It'd be more difficult to project power.
Right. I mean, it just seems inefficient. I don't know. I mean, this is fixed assets from the government. So,
well, logically that makes sense.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying there's no room to cut the defense budget, right? And to PineCreek's point, his completely ridiculous straw man, oh, these leftists have never seen a budget they didn't want to cut. I don't know what leftists you've been talking to. I mean, that doesn't seem like a totally normal leftist
What's something
opinion.
you want to cut?
Yeah, what's something you want to cut?
From the budget?
Yeah, from the federal budget.
Well, I would
You set yourself up for this one.
Go ahead.
Well, like you said, I mean, I think that there's probably room to scale back the defense budget given the fact that they haven't passed an audit, right? So, hey, number one, audit them. If you can't prove where the money is going or reconcile your budgets, yeah, you can't.
What if they say we
really
can't pass the audit because it's a national security issue? If we can't tell you where the money's going, otherwise we're
No.
fucked.
Well, I don't think that would
we-
be the case
we-
because there would be auditors who would have the requisite classification level to do that. I mean, that's how the Defense Department audits in the first place, and that's how we know they fail the audit. So I don't think the premise makes any sense. Now, Doge might not be able to do it, but fuck Doge. I'm okay with that. That we have inspectors general and auditors employed by the federal government with the necessary training and security clearance to actually conduct these audits skillfully.
I think that the biggest single thing that the government wastes a ton of money on is administrators for benefits. I think that's probably your number one biggest sort of line item that I would want to cut out of the budget.
What did you just say?
But
What?
again,
Administration?
administrators for benefits, right? So again, when we're
Like
talking
overhead.
about it's sort of unnecessary overhead, right? So our welfare system is highly inefficient because of how non-cash based it is and how it's not very universal. So if we had a cash-based and more universal system, similar to Social Security but a little bit more expansive, we would be able to let go of thousands and thousands of government workers who basically all they do is make sure that you're not fraudulently getting your benefits. I'm saying, well, hey, let's just change that. Let's get rid of a lot of these income tests and a lot of these asset tests, and we don't need to be testing all that stuff. Let's just make it a more universal cash-based system, and now we don't have a ton of government workers basically just trying to dole out benefits. That would be an example.
No, he's talking about universal basic income, Paul. Is that what you're agreeing to?
I'm more for. I mean, if we're going to do welfare, it's probably better that we just give straight cash rather than pay all the overhead.
That's exactly right.
Like we shouldn't have a government employee go check if someone's actually disabled. We should just have a high floor and.
Right.
But you still got to make sure that the Social Security number matches to a real person, right? You still have to have some checks and balances.
So PineCreek, I'm not saying that you can get rid of literally all administrators for welfare if you have a cash-based system. But what I'm saying is that there's so many thousands of people across state and federal governments that are employed, and all they do is say, okay, you need to submit your W-2. You need to submit your work requirements. You need to submit your drug test. You need to submit your asset level. And all of this is in service of what? Making sure that somebody doesn't get a $300 for food stamps. Like, just give everyone $300 and let's miss all.
But you know what else we could save money on? Like, get rid of federal income tax, and then you don't need all those IRS agents and all the accountants.
How would you fund the government?
Oh, you could have consumption tax.
Well, you'd still need a body to collect that revenue and distribute it properly, right? So you'd still need some sort of central agency to do that. Now, if you're talking about the fair tax proposal, which basically devolved all that down to the states, where they said, hey, the states are going to individually administer how they collect the sales tax. Well, look, in effect, what you're advocating for, again, is just a much poorer system for collecting tax revenue. A decentralized system for collecting tax revenue? Well, why would we want that? We essentially administered efficient system. That's how you make government efficient, not decentralizing everything into these different administrations, because some states would have radically different collection policies than others. Some would have bad faith policies. I mean, it would just be a disaster. I mean, that's one of the things that makes our welfare system so inefficient, is that it's block granted out to all these different states, right? I mean, you should have one single system.
I would like to wrap this up relatively
Wrap it up.
here.
Yeah,
No, you're free. You guys are free to continue the conversation.
Well, I was just curious, real quick. Are you a big fan of Doge? Obviously, Doug is, but are you? How do you feel about
I'm
Doge?
a big fan of the Chicago Bears. I don't get excited when I see an article about Doge. I don't really care about politics. You know what I realized over the course of this 2.5 hour conversation?
You hate politics.
I really do, and I like to explore how people think, and politics is a lens to do that. But at the end of the day, I don't know. Like, honest question. This is on me as well. How many people theoretically do you think have their minds changed by conversations like this? Just generally.
Relatively few.
Yeah, I'd say under 10%. But that, like, I do get emails and stories, and I'm sure even Josiah does as well, from people who are kind of fence sitters and say, hey, you've shifted me. Right, Josiah?
Yep.
I've gotten them both ways. I've actually gotten funny emails from
That you've
people like,
converted
I
people?
was on the fence, but fuck you. I'm more pro.
Well,
Trump now than I
probably
was.
more from my side than your side, because the whole country is shifting, right? But yeah, it does happen. But yeah, it is rare, Paul.
Yeah, and that's why, yeah, like I said, the whole bringing up these questions and get like even the presuppositional type stuff. It's like it is interesting because clearly we have it. All four of us, with the exception of me, probably have above 100 IQ. Okay, which means we're pretty smart. And it is interesting to me how we diverge so much. And I don't know. I guess that I'm just on my soapbox like this. So I don't know.
Paul? Can I give some advice to the left-leaning listeners? And I mean this sincerely. Like, if you want to have the political pendulum shift back your way, I think you admit that it's shifting away from you right now. But if you want it to shift back your way, try this. Try actually complimenting Trump once in a while. And saying, I agree with what Trump, like, for example, Trump did a really good thing. Was it yesterday or the day before with that teacher who was jailed in Russia?
Mark Fogel. Maybe. We don't know the terms of his deal with Putin, but on the whole, I
That's fair.
generally support bringing back wrongfully detained.
And you should say, and I know it might hurt some of your viewership, like they might be offended, but if you want to have any credibility, like, the left is in demise right now. And I think maybe you admit that, maybe you don't.
I mean, I don't know about Josiah, but I've done this multiple times already in the
Okay,
first
good.
3 weeks.
Good.
I mean, I don't think that the problem here is not a lack of nuance in analyzing these issues on the part of the left. I mean, sure, there's some people who lack nuance, generally speaking. It's just very genuine disagreement on the facts of the matter, and also just our sensibilities in terms of our moral persuasions, I guess, right? Like, conservatives have a very different world view.
You guys could be different and outliers, but you still turn on MSNBC. You still hear the rhetoric. Once in a while, they've really backed off of this, but you still hear the left say things like Trump's a fascist and whatever. If those types of people who are using that rhetoric, like, you can't double down on that stuff. You have to start saying stuff like,
what if
Trump did a really good thing here.
Can I ask a question?
Trump can be a fascist and do some good things.
That's true.
Well.
That's true.
Obviously.
That's true.
Right, but point out the good things.
We do.
Mr.
I know.
Boy.
I'm not talking. I'm saying in general.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Boy and Josiah, who are the I don't know, MAGA conservatives or right-wing populists or whatever you want to call them? Who are the MAGA conservatives that you guys listen to most in terms of, like, keeping tabs on what the other side is saying?
Oh, good question.
Robert Knorr, Bobby Knorr, as I like to call him.
Rob Knorr?
Bobby Knorr.
Knorr.
That's his real name.
He's a small YouTuber.
Anyone else? Mr.
He creates a lot of
Rob's
content.
a really
though.
smart guy. And
He is.
I like him.
He's pretty libertarian on a lot of things, but that's fair.
Yeah. So
Definitely MAGA though.
quite.
Okay, so Rob Knorr. What about?
For me, like, the content that I follow, like, I check out Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, Ben Shapiro, Piers Morgan is a really good nexus for MAGA thought because he invites on a lot of MAGA Republicans. So I would refer to them. Yeah.
Tim Pool, interesting.
Yeah.
I can't stand Tim Pool. He's annoying.
He was very pleasant in person, but I hate his politics. Yeah. The low-just politics. Yeah.
Do you sympathize a lot with the, like, I totally understand why someone, like, broadly speaking, would you agree with the statement? I totally get why someone would vote for Donald Trump.
Not rationally. No. No, not really. Because I find that a lot of MAGA people defy their stated principles. There's a dissonance when they vote for him. So, for example, like Rob talks about how he's anti-corruption, but Donald Trump, the corruption associated with Donald Trump, which, Paul, I know you would not deny, Doug might, is excessive. The meme coin, not divesting himself from his businesses in his first term, even though that was the expectation of presidents, refusing to turn over his tax returns, $9 million that he received from China, purging inspectors general, things of
Ethnically
that nature.
cleansing Gaza.
Right.
Why is that
So
not
that's
higher
just
on
one
the? That seems
example. It's
like
okay,
if
well,
you
if
hate
your
Trump.
stated value is, sorry, you cut out on me. Can you
say-
hear me?
Yeah, can you hear it? Can you hear
Yeah,
it?
Yeah, we
sorry.
can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I've got a kinked earbud cord right now, so I'm having to hold it. But say something now.
Hold on, can you hear
now.
us?
Okay, there we
Can you
go.
hear
Okay,
us?
yeah. So like that's an example. Oh, I hate corruption, so I'm going to vote for the most singularly corrupt politician in modern American history. That's not rational, right? But I have MAGA family members and friends. I grew up in rural Kentucky, so most of the people in my life are Republican, and most of them are MAGA.
And you
So I'm
okay.
certainly familiar with the thought process, but I think most of it comes down to delusion and own the libs.
I got another
Okay.
question for these guys.
But real quick, I actually have a question for you, Doug, because you
Yeah.
point out something that's interesting. Compliment Trump. Did you compliment Biden?
Yes. In fact, I just did it on 3 live streams ago. I remember watching Biden. This was years ago when Trump won the first term. And you remember when there was challenges to the electors in Congress? Do you remember that? And Biden basically looked at his Democrat colleagues and told them,
And said, knock it off.
Yes, shut up and sit down. And I respect Biden for doing that.
So your praise of Biden is something nice that he did for Trump. Interesting.
He still did it. He could have chosen not to do it.
Right.
PineCreek, what's like a policy that
Yeah.
I'm sure that there must be some policy Biden did that you think is good.
I've got
The
an
Infrastructure
apples to apples
Act.
one. I've
Jordan,
got an apples to
yeah,
apples one for Doug.
Yeah,
I've got an apples.
I agree with it. Like infrastructure, if you're going to spend taxpayer money, like on the discretionary part, we all want
Bridges.
safer bridges and roads.
Yeah.
Airports.
He also got
Fraud.
a
I don't know.
prisoner swap,
There's
Paul
some
Whelan,
fraud.
towards the end of his presidency, and that was a guy that Trump tried to get out from Russian prison for years and failed to do so, and Biden got it done.
Yep.
That's something to praise.
I don't know. Well, it depends on the terms
Pulled
you made
out
with
of
Putin.
Afghanistan. That was a
Pull out of
pretty big
Afghanistan,
thing,
yeah.
you know?
But Josiah,
All right, well,
Josiah,
look
I got to ask Josiah this question about his
my
YouTube
God.
This is YouTube creator type stuff. But I remember when we talked, I don't know, months ago, and you gave me some advice on how to title YouTube videos.
Mm-hmm.
And I just can't do it like you because I don't feel like I'm being sincere and honest. Because you use shocking titles, and I have done it, especially with shorts, but I still feel icky about it. And what's really curious about it is I sometimes watch your content and then I watch your antithesis, like channels as big as yours but are conservative, and they do it too. And sometimes you guys have the exact same clip you're using and exact opposite titles, and it's just hilarious to me. Have you noticed that?
That conservatives will have a different approach on the content that we both review. Of course, yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
that you'll title it in shocking ways on the exact same clip.
Right. That they have wildly different interpretations of it than I do. Of course.
But you'd never feel icky about saying so-and-so is embarrassed by blah, blah, blah. And then when I watch it, I'm looking for the embarrassment part, and I don't really see it.
Yeah, so usually I say humiliation, right? So the way we refer to humiliation colloquially, you may not feel any shame when I humiliate you by debunking your various falsehoods, but we would still say, oh, wow, P.F. Young or PineCreek Doug were humiliated, Josiah was humiliated. Now, if I said, Trump was shamed or Trump felt embarrassment, yeah, then unless I had any evidence of that.
Like
then,
sometimes I think you
no,
even
that's
use
wrong.
the phrasing visibly shaken or something like that. And so this is not about
Like a good example. I got a good example. So like when Elon Musk was put on the cover of Time magazine, and that was one of Trump's favorite magazines. And when Trump was asked about it at the White House, and you see him kind of crestfallen and say, well, no, I haven't heard about it. Is Time magazine still in effect? Is it still? I didn't even know that, even though he was Times Man of the Year 2 months ago and attended a ceremony and then said it was a real honor to be made Times Man of the Year. So he lied to cover for the fact that he was embarrassed that Elon Musk was put on the cover.
Like, let me read some of your titles here.
That's a good example.
Like, she's triggered. Watch Trump's press secretary implode on stage.
PineCreek, can you go up to the subscriber count and compare it to yours?
I know. I'm not denying the effectiveness of it, but what I'm asking you about,
I can't. Wait a minute. I can't hear you.
Oh, that's convenient.
Can you say something?
Can't hear him over his.
Now I can hear
shadow
you.
count.
Okay.
Yeah.
PineCreek obviously he titles his videos that way for the algorithm, right? I mean, what's the?
But don't you think that in some sense you sell a little bit of your soul when you do that?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. It's like I tried it a few times, and like I do the Norm Macdonald type approach. Like I hope people see through my sarcasm, but sometimes they don't. But I don't think I could do what you're doing.
I understand.
It's because you're not good enough.
That's what it
You
sounds
don't
like.
want it enough, Doug.
No.
I guess not.
Yeah.
The-
All
I
right.
mean,
no,
PineCreek,
that's-
is
yeah.
that really that big of a deal to have a hyperbolic title on a video? I don't see what the big
well,
deal
I
is.
think when it
It's
comes to
certainly not a
having,
big deal.
I think
It's
when
certainly not a
when it comes to having civil, better, productive conversations, if you're just giving a monologue, I do it too. Like I'll say triggering words, but if you're trying to promote civil discourse, and this is why I love street epistemology, is because this doesn't work. I know it doesn't work.
So two things I would point out. So you assume that my videos are trying to promote civil discourse. Some of them are, some of them are not. Most of them are not. Most of them are to hype up the people who agree with me and to motivate them to get out and vote and make their opinions known.
But you're
Number
encouraging
That is
tribalism.
fair.
Number one.
But
Number
that
one.
is fair. He's playing party politics, which is a real thing.
Yeah,
If you want the Democrats to win, putting out those videos energizes the base.
Yeah, I'm an open and
But
unabashed
there's a pragmatic,
partisan,
there's a pragmatic kind of aspect to it.
which is why the candidate you prefer also speaks in hyperbole and is
Yeah,
the
and
most
I don't
prolific
like-
liar. But you
you don't like it?
clearly
Doug?
don't care.
Well, I personally don't care, but I realize, like my own wife, she voted for Trump and she likes Trump, but she hates the way he talks. And I get it. Some people just really are turned off with the way Trump speaks. It doesn't bother
Right.
me because I can sort of see through it. I like when he says things like when he says, I'm going to cut electricity down to half and then your price of eggs in half. I go, he's not going to do that. Like I can rationally say, no, that's not, and still vote for the guy because on other issues that I think he will do, like what he's done with the border, for example. So, but I just can't, I'm viewing your typical follower, Josiah, as someone who is so partisan, so tribalistic, that they wouldn't even feel comfortable sitting with a guy like me and talking about this stuff. They would just get red in the face, and they're so pumped up that they can't even think straight.
Doug, in all seriousness, are there some people out there like that? Of course, but we're having this conversation. We've had multiple conversations.
Yeah, I'm not talking about you.
Right. I understand, but I don't think you should assume that my followers are substantively different from me. I mean, they might be, but I think as a general heuristic, you should assume if they're absorbing my content, then they might look at politics similar to me. I like Paul. I like you. I like sparring with you guys. I like talking shit to you. It's all in good fun. Calmly discussing, bantering back and forth, the ups, the downs. It's all great. So calling you sweetheart. I'd buy you guys beer if we met in real life and like we're in person. But it's also there's a partisanship element to it. I think that the Democratic Party is better than the Republican Party. I think that Donald Trump is an authoritarian, and I'm not going to equivocate or indulge in a false equivalence. And I think that what the Democrats sorely need is to be hyped up and energized the way that the Republicans are constantly. Look at Ben Shapiro stuff. Look at Michael Knowles stuff. Look at Matt Walsh's stuff. Look at Tim Pool stuff. Joe Rogan,
okay,
Crowder, and others.
Josiah, I'm going to be very honest with you. Like I think I can be objective. I really can understand I can put myself in their shoes. And when I look at Ben Shapiro compared to you in the videos, I don't compare you as being at all similar. He can actually steelman the other side and does it, and will actually say things that he doesn't like about Trump, and it does it regularly. And same with Tim Pool.
Yeah, but Doug, do you understand the concept of diversity of tactics? But it's like you need people like Josiah to basically be a watchdog. Say anytime the conservatives do something bad, jump on it immediately. And then there's a conservative version of that. But then there's different people like whoever the leftist Joe Rogan is. I don't know. But then there are people who are like a little bit more amenable, who while Josiah's out energizing the base, there are other people who are Democrat who are more about building bridges, and you get a diversity of tactics.
Yeah,
So
I
Josiah's
get that.
fulfilling one, and that's,
But what you're saying, Paul, is that what Josiah is doing is he's conjuring up this,
energizing the base.
this passion. But whenever, here's my opinion. In my opinion, once you get this passion and energy, it's almost at the expense of the intellect and charity.
But PineCreek, you used as an example Ben Shapiro talking about the times that he disagrees with Trump. I mean, it seems like half of every Live and Learn episode is us talking shit about every Democratic Party leader. How bad?
Yeah,
they
Ben
are
Shapiro
at their
does a
jobs,
lot of
right?
the same shit.
Actually, Ben Shapiro has pulled back on a lot of political stuff. Like
Well, PineCreek,
and
but
also he
let's
cut
not-
his teeth on
let's not
Ben
offend
Shapiro
Josiah by
owns
comparing him to Ben
college
Shapiro.
kids.
True.
Right. So
Yeah, Ben Shapiro sucks.
yeah, this is actually an example of your confirmation bias at play, because you're a right winger. You're inclined to grade them more charitably and interpret what they do in a more favorable
Well, no,
light.
but to be fair to me, though, Josiah, like I watched The Young Turks, I watched The Majority Report, I watched David Pakman, I watched Jimmy Dore, and there are many times on my live stream where I said, I agree here, 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 and I disagree here, here, here. And if you watch, like I do use sarcasm, but for the most part, I'm pretty calm, dispassionate. And that's why you have 100 times more subscribers than me, because I don't try to rile up people. I do trigger people sometimes with my monologues. I'll use certain words, but
you're certainly a troll when you want to be, but that's not the point. My point is, I take your assessment of me relative to other conservative commentators that you like. I'm just simply telling you that they have, in fact. I mean, look at Tim Pool's Twitter page. Troll. Outrage bait in ways that I don't.
Sucks.
I like to mock bad faith conservatives, but
I agree.
Tim
Pool does things similar to you. I agree.
No, but so does Ben Shapiro, so does Michael Knowles, so does Matt Walsh, so do others. My point is, you're inclined not to see it that way because you are a conservative sympathetic to their ideas.
Sure, I have biases just like you do, but what I'm saying is in my opinion, I think you do it more like with this shock value type stuff. And I'm not saying I get it, why you do it. I understand this is your living. It's another thing. Like I don't do this for money, whereas you do, right? Like this is your core income.
This is what I do full time now.
Yeah. And so, for example, if you were to actually say things that made your partisan side look bad and you lose 10% viewership, that would really hurt you.
But that's the thing. This is where your knowledge is incomplete here, because if you go back and watch, for example, the Live and Learn episode that Econoboi and I just came from, we were pulling up cringe clips of elected Democrats embarrassing themselves in public. One congresswoman, for example, tried to rally the troops against Trump, and she says, "We need to fuck Trump."
Yeah, I saw that.
Right. You have Chuck Schumer. You have Chuck Schumer saying things like, he goes, "The people are aroused. I have never seen so many aroused people before."
Oh my God.
We do criticize our side, and we do even laugh at our side, and we even acknowledge when Republicans do things right. But going back all the way to what Econoboi said at the beginning, there are sincere disagreements here.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't pretend to have, let me put it like this. I don't pretend to disagree with any Republican. When I voice a disagreement with a Republican, it is sincere. As a matter of fact, even when I don't have so like at the very beginning, you guys were talking about Trump in the courts. If you actually watch my content, one of the things you'll notice is I'm not yelling at Trump for saying that he might disregard the courts. As a matter of fact, in my content, I've said this presents mixed feelings for me because I have issues with the notion of judicial supremacy, where the judiciary can give orders to Congress and the presidency.
Right. I pulled up the clip of you saying, fuck the Supreme Court.
So that's me being consistent. It would be easy
I respect it.
It would be easy for me to say, oh my God.
Look,
right.
I kind of like fascism a little bit, just like you. Just a
well,
little bit.
We have a democratic republic where I don't think the judiciary should be.
It's a drop of fascism. Like the court tells me to, it's like, fuck you, right? That's kind of like, I respect it.
It would also help if the court were accountable in ways that it's currently not. You're talking about 9
Yes, to the
unelected
Fuhrer.
lifetime appointees with no binding ethics.
I agree. The Supreme Court is like a fucked up priesthood, basically. It's kind of
correct, right? And both the liberal and conservative justices should be subject to much more oversight and accountability. And then, if that were the case, then I might be more inclined to say, "Hey, you just shut up and do what the fuck the court tells you to when they step in." But my point is, I think that your knowledge of my content is woefully incomplete. You have rosy tinted glasses on when it comes to
I've watched
evaluating
enough.
your side of the aisle.
Let me compliment you. I've watched enough of you to know that when you, even with the flashy hook bait type, clickbait type titles, when you actually click on and watch your content, you're actually very similar to me. You're pretty calm, monotone. You don't get excited. We're very similar in that personality type, I think.
I've often thought that we're long lost relatives, like the similarities.
You
are
should have
just-
heard it at the
are
beginning.
binding.
You know what? We're all this weird, fucked up, inbred family of
I said I'm from
long-lost
Kentucky,
children,
so,
cousins,
yeah.
and
Quite
sons.
the political spectrum we have here on this.
Good grief.
show.
All right. Well, I feel like that's a good place
Yeah,
for me to wrap
kumbaya
up. You see,
moment.
unlike
Yeah.
you guys, I don't do this full time, although we'll see about that in the next
Wait a minute,
2
I thought
months.
you did. I thought
I'm to this
you
full-time
quit your
either.
job to do this. What happened?
No. I took an extended unpaid leave of absence, and I've been back in corporate
He's
America
a centrist
for like
Josiah.
8 months.
He
Yeah, no, I
quit,
don't make
but he
any money.
didn't
You think I
quit.
make money off this? Good grief.
Come on.
No, I make $0. No, I don't make $0. I make -$, because I pay a video.
Well, I make something. Why are you hosting then if you
I'm a
make
net
nothing?
negative. I'm a net negative.
Just
Well,
All
investing
right.
in
Well,
the
hey,
market.
I want to get. Is there any? We have any? First off, you guys are free to continue. I mean, Doug's still streaming. So you
No,
guys are free
I'm
to
getting
continue.
tired.
No, I
Long
I'm
live
one
All right,
hour
Medicare.
overdue.
all right.
Long
So,
live
Long live
Social Security.
What's
Medicare,
the-
Medicaid, Social Security. Fuck Doge. We need oversight. How is it that the world's richest man is providing oversight and
You
accountability
got something
to the
against
federal government,
billionaires?
but is not
Just
subject,
jealous.
but is
God,
not
I do.
subject himself to oversight and accountability?
I
and
support
transparency? It's
Elon
bullshit.
Musk and his endeavor. Keep going, Elon.
Unbelievable.
all right.
Let
Guys,
the
George
liberals,
Soros
let the progressives
should be
cry.
one
It's
next
okay.
time,
Let them
Democrats.
cry and say he's not elected. And neither was Kamala Harris elected to run
No, she
for
lost the
president.
election, sadly.
Come on.
She's
All
just
right.
like
Kamala
Elon.
Thanks, guys.
Kamala Harris sadly lost the election.
Thanks, Josiah, for coming. Boy, it was nice to meet you.
Good meeting
I
everybody.
know we got aggressive early on, but it's just part of the
Okay.
show, and no
Listen,
one gets
I love you,
convinced on
Mr. Young.
logic. We get convinced on vibes, and we're just trying to
And
keep
Paul,
good
I'm
vibes.
glad you could make it onto my channel. Thank you for coming.
Doug, yes, you're welcome. We'll. I'm gonna have to. Once I kick you guys, I'm gonna give a message to my audience here. I'm gonna have
Which
to-
is he shutting down?
Okay,
his-
see,
Maybe
I'm
we'll-
going
I'm
to
not
leave before he
fucking
kicks me. I'm going to leave before he
I
kicks
literally.
me. Who's that? Wow. That was... I originally invited Paul to come on my channel, and there's advantages to that. I think it would have gone a little bit better, maybe. But the disadvantage is I don't think Josiah or the other guy would ever have come on one-on-one with me. Maybe. So by having Paul as the liaison, it allowed them to come on. But yeah, that was interesting. I still don't think, like when your entire income is based on this partisanship, and as a YouTube creator, like you have a strong bias to not be objective. And that's a problem. Now you can say that about politicians, of course, but if they screw up, they're not voted back in. But as a YouTube creator, like all these big YouTube creators, I guess if you get really big, then you can afford to really tick off a third of your base or a quarter of your base. Anyhow, I've been ignoring the chat. I'll start the music soon, and I'll focus on the chat if you have any questions or comments. Tag me. You use the shift number 2, and you go and you type in PI, and then my name will come up, and then I'll see you quickly. You can say the same thing about pastors. Yeah, I agree. I agree. 100% you should play that up more. You're right about the clickbait. It's dishonest and furthering the divide. Yeah. I'm not against all clickbait, and maybe I'm just saying that because I've used it, but like you can have funny clickbait where you kind of know they're not being serious. So you know it's not real clickbait, it's just like clickbait pretending to be clickbait sort of thing. Why are the hosts of The Line afraid to debate trans issues on a fair platform? Probably because their identity, they're so entrenched in that identity, in that support group. PineCreek, I'm a cinephile. Do you have any favorite movies? Yeah, my favorite movies are No Country for Old Men, In the Line of Fire, Matrix, Django Unchained. I tend to like, Inglourious Bastards. I like Quentin Tarantino. Knives Out, the first one. That gives you an idea of the type of movies I like. Good question, though. Something new, unique, something that's not religion or politics. All that talk of humiliation and shame, and they have zero self-reflection on clickbait. Yeah, you notice I started to read out the titles of his videos, and I got shut down pretty quickly. Missed the opportunity to ask them name something they liked about Trump. Yeah, I asked them. He did say that it seemingly was a good thing that Trump got that teacher out of Russia, out of jail. $1911 or Glock? Glock. By the way, if you were here long enough to hear us talking about the $800 billion cuts to Medicare over 10 years, in the back of my mind, I'm going, is that really the Republicans' official platform? And I looked it up while you were talking afterwards, and no, it isn't. And most of that's rhetoric. And I was on the right track that it was not just cutting it, but replacing it with something else. So, yeah. Every sentence from Trump's mouth is clickbait. Yeah, Trump uses hyperbole a lot. Some people call it lying a lot. He will use shocking language a lot. So in that way, him and Josiah are very much the same. I'm a liberal, but I love Trump is standing up for women and their space sports. Yeah, you notice when I asked about that executive order, their first response was, this is such a non-issue. The far left progressives, they realize that they're losing on that they're by far the minority in that. And even military at the border. The majority of Americans like military at the border. The majority of Americans don't want males competing against females. The majority of Americans want deportations. My apologies to Ben Shapiro. He was scheduled to come on the program, but we ran out of time.